dragons are here, but not just.
Very exciting. Okay, guys, welcome to Open Water Night 2. I want to get some of this on that we're talking about on record for you guys as well. Exciting stuff. You guys kind of went through the indoctrination of getting in the water, blowing bubbles, having a little bit of fun. How was it? How was blowing bubbles?
No, it's fun.
Awesome. Here's the good things. That will, after tonight, will be officially your worst dive experience ever. Tonight will become the best. So each time you do this, that's kind of the fun part about open water is each night becomes your new best experience ever. And the last one's like, God, that one sucked. So hopefully it doesn't actually suck, but starts giving you an idea that each time you do this, it gets a little bit better. And night 4, you guys are going to be like, old salts, I'm diving. I'm a super diver. I could do this, and then we're going to take you to open water, and it's going to be a whole new experience. And dive 1 of open water will be your best and worst experience ever. You'll have a lot of fun. We'll do some skills. Dive 2, you guys will do some skills. If you guys get a chance, you'll probably do dive 3 as well. You can only do 3 dives in one day as a student, unfortunately. And then day 2, you'll be like old salts. You'll be like, oh, this is easy. And hopefully Brett does. One of the things I like to do is I build cairns out of rocks with rocks on platforms for dive 1, day 2. And it's fun because what I notice as you guys are building cairns is here's what happens. As you start your dive, your fins look like this. By the end of the dive, at about 15, 20 minutes into it, your fins look about like this. Because you guys start forgetting about your fins and stop forgetting about how to be buoyant. You just are buoyant. And you're like, and you're building your cool little cairns and making little rock structures, and your friends will knock them over. And it's all kinds of fun. So hopefully he does that for you. Josh has seen that as well. Building the cairns is one of my favorite skills to do throughout the dive. So we have a tremendous amount of fun. But the good news is dive day 1, it'll be your best and worst experience. But dive day 2, you'll be even better, and you'll hopefully want to continue this process. Again, my name is Benjamin Hadfield. I'll be your dive instructor today. My qualifications to teach this: I am a dive master instructor. Hopefully, when you guys see me again on Monday, I will have changed that card to a new card. So wish me luck, because my course is a little tougher than your course, I promise you. So as Josh, I think, had a pretty good understanding last night of the level of exactness that I'm going through for my course. So I'm moving up to the point where I'll start teaching full instructors. So it's the level of exactness for my presentations is a little different. So, and then I will be in the pool all day Friday. So all the skills I'm teaching you guys today, I will be evaluated on as well. So I have to go through and do everything you guys are doing, except at a much, much narrower margin. So it'll be a lot of fun. And then I will have the opportunity to teach some pretend students that will definitely have pretend problems, but I won't know what those pretend problems are. I'll have to figure out the pretend problems. So it's one of the fun things when you get to be a fake student for an instructor of trying to figure out something that they won't figure out. It becomes a challenge of, will they spot this problem or that problem? Fun story for you. When I was doing my instructor trainer course to become an instructor so I could just teach this, we went down, and it was late night. It was like 10 o'clock at night at the crater, and somebody had gone down and mucked it all up. So the visibility was shite at best. And what they do is they send the instructor down, and they have the students at the top, and they give the students a problem. And you don't know if both students have a problem, or only one of the student problems has a problem, or which one of those students has the problem. We were all tired. It was day 3 of our course and evaluation, and the students come down, and I couldn't see crap. It was night. It was dark. There was this soot in the water, and I had 2 students, and I'm going through, and I honestly wasn't exactly sure what the problem was. One of the things that we ask is, when you grab the regulator, that you grab it on the hose at the base, just below the actual second stage. That's how you're supposed to grab it. Well, one of my students grabbed it from the front and pulled it out, but pointed it down, and then put it back in. As they went through the air sharing skill, as God is my witness, I have no idea what the problem was. All I could see was that she grabbed it at the base instead of at the shank, and I wasn't sure. So I just went through. I did a quick demonstration for them while we're underwater, explaining as we go along, and then I had them redo it over again. We got through the skill. We went ahead and did our ascent. We got to the top. The instructor evaluator says, "Good job, Benjamin. I see you caught all those problems that we threw at you. You did an amazing job. Good job." And I was really worried because he'd asked everybody else, "What problems did you see?" And he was so tired. It was so late. He didn't ask me, and I was thanking God, because I wasn't going to say, "Hey, what were the problems?" I didn't want to look like the idiot. So, fun story. I don't know what the problem is still to this day, and I've thought about calling back and asking, but I can't imagine he actually remembers. But it's fun. So that's what I go through at my level. Is we have to be able to really teach these to a very exacting standards. So my wife should be around at some point next week. She is freaking amazing and far better than I deserve, and probably a better instructor, to be honest with you, as well. She's qualified to do pretty much everything I can do. She just doesn't have the cards. I'm also a technical diving instructor as well. And as you will notice, I like to put actual pictures. Where is that one? I think this one's Roatan. We were on a boat at sunset getting ready to go do a night dive together. So you'll see actual pictures of actual dive trips. If you change the next slide, please. Some of the guys you'll see kind of coming in and around. You met Ryan. He'll be back on Monday. We got Wilson. He'll be here. I doubt you'll ever see Don. He's pretty much a ghost apparition. We've got this goofy guy, Steven. He comes around once in a while. He's a hard-headed former Marine. It is what it is. It's pretty much, oh, there. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see you standing. God, I didn't see you come in. And Larson will maybe come in at some point as well. Fantastic guys. All very experienced. Perfect. So one of the things I encourage is your guys are not going to become perfect with anything you do in just what we do, right? This is definitely like finishing first grade, right? You're just figuring out that you can use colors, and you've figured out that you're not to eat the paste, right? Kind of deal. Just kidding. Hopefully you didn't eat paste in school. I obviously Steven did, but hopefully the rest of you didn't. Absolutely, absolutely. And who we're both Marines, so we have a steady diet of crayons as well. So I like the red ones; they're the best. But what you'll find out is one of the safest things you can do is have perfect buoyancy. And what we teach is not just the buoyancy being the ability to float in a water column. We teach buoyancy and trim. And what that means is not only are you able to stay floating, but you're able to stay floating in a position of balance that you can literally almost fall asleep in a position. So we teach a course called Perfect Buoyancy. And the idea is to train you to make sure that you're not crashing into reefs. You can control your buoyancy and your height in the water column with just your breath, and you're able to be comfortable in position. We also teach another course that I really like as well. If this doesn't sound interesting, just learning this, I teach one called Photo Video. It teaches you to take better photos and videos of still life. But here's the thing about it is, to take a good photo, you have to have good buoyancy. So I have to teach you perfect buoyancy in photo video, because if you're going in to take a picture, you have to be able to float there. So I call it perfect buoyancy Miyagi style. I put you focusing on something else, and you end up learning perfect buoyancy anyway. It's a fun course. We take some Star Wars action figures out from Josh's collection, and we photograph them underwater. So it's a great way to go. Next slide, please. Just so you know, throughout this process, we gamify the process quite a bit. As you go through this, if you do 2 specialties and you get 12 log dives, you become a specialty diver. And if you'll notice, on each one of those are my actual cards. So as I got through each portion. So I just like to reiterate, I started exactly where you guys were at, and I was twice the goober you'll ever be. So as we go through this and you move up the column, you'll start noticing when you call around to do a dive boat, if you start getting on some of them, they'll start asking, hey, do you have your advanced? Or are you an advanced diver? So this is what they're asking. And to get to become an advanced diver, you need 4 specialties and 24 open water logged dives. That's what they're asking, to make sure that you're going to be able to get on the boat and handle a little bit more advanced diving. The biggest I Ching that we always look for is the master diver. I'm the master of, it's like Grayskull. I have the power. Come on, nobody knows Grayskull?
He-Man.
He-Man, there we go. You are or he-woman. She-Ra, there we go. That's right, She-Ra. So you were the She-Ra of the water, or the He-Man of the water, and you have 4 specialties, 50 log dives, and stress and rescue. Stress and rescue is a lot of fun for me. I'm not sure how much fun it's. No, I'm just kidding. It's a lot of fun for you as well. What we do is, my goal is to create situations that stress you out in a safe environment so we can talk about it and help you, identify what stresses you out, how to deal with that stress, and how to work your way through that stress. I believe firmly that in most of life's events that we do, it's not a matter of if there's going to be a problem. It matters the challenge is when it's going to happen and how I'm going to handle it. Life is not stress-free, unfortunately. So we teach you how to deal with that. Now, if you guys can make it to Master Diver before December 31st of this year, SSI has the Master Diver Challenge. This was the last year one. I need to update this one, but it is a free dive trip on a liveaboard in Turks Caicos on an Aggressor 2. There's a picture of the boat. It's a big boat. It has plenty of places to eat, and if you're so inclined to drink, and they dive, and they eat. They dive. Yeah, it's freaking amazing. So there's something to look forward to. And we talked about that. I wanted you guys to think about this and give me an idea. Where do you want this magical diving journey to take you? What does that look like to you? Where are you hoping to go other than just biology? Just pretty reefs or what? What kind of marine life are you most excited about? Nice. That'll be pretty neat one to see, that's for sure. How about you? What are you most looking forward to in diving? Oh, sharks. Big puppies. Big fluffy puppies. They just want to be pet. They're so fun. I love sharks too. I actually tried to ride a shark once. So about 2 minutes. He wasn't terribly impressed, and I'm pretty sure when he swam away, he flipped me the bird. He wasn't. Yes, don't try and ride a shark. It's not probably the best idea in the entire world. He was only like a 10-foot silky, but it was fun. It doesn't work like Flipper. My vision when I tried this that it was going to be like Flipper, and I was like, oh, go Flipper, go. It doesn't work. Just trust me on this one. It's they make it look much cooler at SeaWorld than I did, I'm sure. But it's cool. Sharks are amazing. There's so many kinds too: threshers and hammerheads, silkies and lemons, and gray whites, right? Or the mid-size, you know, great whitish colored shark. So for our political people, what are you looking forward to?
Probably just going diving whenever I go on trip.
Perfect. What do you want to see on those dives though?
Like purple fish, coral reefs.
Perfect.
Those
Thank you for not
types.
saying guys in speedos with washboard abs. I appreciate that. You see those too, but colorful fish is a much better answer. How about you, big guy?
No, or we just want to do it as a binding experience. We travel a lot with like my daughters in Europe for the next few weeks. So it'd be great.
Yeah, Copenhagen is known for its diving.
Yeah, so we'll be. It'll.
No, I'm just kidding.
Well, it's got. Anyways, just an experience with them. So
You'll
just
love
a
it.
binding experience. And then Yellowstone.
Come to
Wherever we
Yellowstone.
go, visit the people, go diving.
Come to Yellowstone with us. I am the person to go with. We're well known for being the guides of Yellowstone. So, how about you, big guy?
I think the scenery, like the shipwrecks kind of thing, corals, stuff like that.
My favorite shipwreck to just go putz around on is called the Lady Luck. She sits deck wise at about 120 something feet, in the sand about 140. And I saw my first fireworm there. I'd never seen a fireworm there before. So we're coming up, and she's covered with really cool, beautiful coral, right, that's growing on her. And I saw this thing. It was about this long, about this wide, about that thick, and it had about 1,000,000 legs. And it looked like a big fuzzy wuzzy, right? And I was like, cool. And luckily I wear gloves. And you're not supposed to do this. And my wife and I were going up to do our decompression obligation on the line. And I reached down and I let him crawl up my glove. And I'm trying to show it to my wife. And I took a picture of him. And I'm like, this is so cool. He's like, doing his little fuzzy wuzzy thing. And I set him back down nicely and made sure he was fine. And, said goodbye. Bye, fuzzy wuzzy. And I didn't know what he was. I was like, whoa, what is that? I'm glad I was wearing gloves because I talked to the dive master. And he's like, I don't know what you're talking about. And I showed him the picture. He's like, I've never seen one of those before. Okay, and I went and I talked to the captain of the boat, and he's oh, and I talked to the guy who owned the dive shop, and he says, yeah, I saw one of those one time at Blue Heron Bridge. When I touched it, it made me get really nauseous, and my whole arm went to sleep. Like, that doesn't sound good. So we came back off our trip, and I did my typical Google, all of us know Google, right? And finally I found it. It turns out it has highly venomous neurotoxin that will make you extremely nauseous for 4 to 6 hours and cause paralysis. Don't touch! So, perfect idea for you. How about you, big guy? Where are you looking to go?
I just want to be available for any opportunity that presents itself. I had a friend and I that went to Belize, and he has open waters. I didn't, and unfortunately, we both had a snorkel because he didn't have his deep diving. We couldn't do the big blue hole. nighttime open.
Right on.
So it's more about be prepared.
Absolutely. Be prepared for adventure. I like it. I like it a lot. Steven, what's your favorite dive?
They're all pretty good. Pilker in Iceland is pretty cool. It's just everything's a little unique. Belize, yeah, Belize was really cool. I actually I tried doing the big blue hole, but the conditions weren't good, so I couldn't take the boat out. So Belize is really cool. Okinawa, Japan, that's gorgeous. Did a liveaboard in the Bahamas last year. That was really cool too. I mean, every dive is unique, and every dive is going to have the. I don't know if that I have a favorite. Every dive is great.
Wilson?
Oh.
I know his was 80 minutes at the hot tub.
Yeah, so I get a lot of crap for it, but there's a hot spring down in Utah that is, it's actually really cool when nobody else is there because you can actually see things, but as soon as other people get in the water, they kick it up and you can't see anything. But down in the bottom of it, there's this, I can't describe it as anything else but like a gateway to hell where there's just a whole bunch of like flotsam boiling in the bottom of the hot spring, and you can like stick your hand down in there, and I still haven't found the bottom of it. I found a good like 2.5 foot stick and stuck it down in the bottom, and it just floated right back out. So I'm pretty sure that's just a gateway to hell if you feel like swimming through it. So
And it's about 110 degrees coming out of that. So
yeah, and it's boiling water. Like
Yeah,
it's
so-
it's literally sitting there boiling in the bottom of the lake.
Josh, how about you? What's your favorite dive?
I mean, out of the 3 places I've dove, I really like. I mean, I guess it's technically 2 places, but I really liked looking at the interaction between there were crawdads eating a dead fish and then fish trying to come up, and that was just interesting to just be right there, like right next to them while observing their environment. And then just like that, I really like that. And then kind of going on to like observing, we did Rigby Lake, and they have a bunch of like just the way all the plant life and stuff grows. It doesn't grow like it does on land, and it's just very interesting to look at and observe, even though there's no like fish or anything moving. But
Nice. There's something special in every dive. We kind of talked about a few of my favorites. Truth, my favorite dive is the next dive I'm going to do, other than Friday. That doesn't really count as a dive. So, so I'm just doing skills and skills and skills and skills and skills. But they're all amazing, and you'll have that. It's hard to say what dive wouldn't you do again, because there's something special about every dive we do, and you find something different. I think one dive I'm hesitant to do again is the crater in Mary Bay and Yellowstone Lake, because it's such a long freaking swim. It's over a half a mile swim to get to it and find it. But once you get there, it's super cool. You get down to about 110, 120 feet in the crater, and it's pitch black. It's 36 degrees. And you start looking out, and from here to the wall, you'll probably see 75 to 100 geothermals, anywhere from the size of a quarter to the size of a dinner plate. And you see, as you look through, if you put somebody on the other side of it, you have these vertical haloclimes. It's like looking at vinegar being poured in the water. It just gives it this kind of interesting distortion in the water. So it's just a long freaking swim. So it's one that I don't do very often, just because it's a half a mile freaking swim, which means you swim a mile, but you get out there and you have to get back. So, but as you guys start thinking about these, I put my favorite 4 at the top. You know, we talked about this. If you want to dive longer, deeper, or not deeper, but longer, less surface interval, have more energy after a dive, be safer, then Perfect Point or Enriched Nitrox Air. Nitrox is for you. $100. We'll teach that sometime next week. Navigation, I love knowing where I'm at, and being strong in that. Deep diving will take you to 130 feet. Night limited viz will let you do this stuff at night. Perfect Points is a great one as well. Stress and Rescue and React Right go together. We teach CPR, first aid, AED, and oxygen provider. And then you start getting the fun stuff. I love science of diving because I love to know how. I'm the kid that as I was young, I took the alarm clock apart. I took the microwave apart. Yeah, my mom just loved me, right? I took the washing machine apart, but I was able to get that one back together. The microwave was a casualty of war, right? Wreck diving, I love wrecks. And then I dive side mount, which means I dive my tanks on the side. You can get into recreational side mount. It's very comfortable, more streamlined. For every one of my kicks, you'll have to do 3. And I get about 30% better sack rate. So I use about 30% less air than when I'm on back mount because it's that much more streamlined. It's that much more comfortable. Next slide, please. Other cool things you can take. Go on a trip and you can take the ecologies so that you know what you're going to look at. Fish identification, shark, things like that. Search and is kind of a fun one to do as well. Wave size and currents. Photo video is my secret Miyagi course. It's if you want to learn perfect buoyancy. Certainly take a perfect buoyancy course, or you can Miyagi your way through it with photo video. We also have our Blue Ocean program that's completely free to you guys. It's online. It talks about how we can be better stewards of our ocean and our environment. I strongly encourage taking a look at that. We only have one Earth, one time on it, so let's take care of it and let's try and leave it better than we found it. If you have kids, the Explorers program is a lot of fun. I've started working on Explorers with my own grandson, and it's just a ton of fun to watch him just make the bubbles and have fun and go through and have a little leverage over him to make sure he does his chores. Fun stuff. We've got the books over there. They're like $80 for the book, and just fun to do as well. They have all the specialties that we've talked about in Explorers, except they're just junior versions of it. And then, of course, more advanced courses, dry suit diving, full face, and ice. Those are 3 really fun ones to do together. You have to have at least 20 dry suit dives before I will take you into the ice. But it's a fun way to go. And if you get cold easy like I do, you guys want to know my big secret? This is my big shame. I don't like being cold. I really don't. I don't like getting cold. I don't like being cold. I don't like the cold. I'm not a winter fan. I'm not that guy. I'm an excellent skier. Black diamonds, double blacks, no big deal. But I promise you, when I do ski, I've got heated undergarments. I am a big wimp. I am the guy that is the first one to the fire at the lodge, sitting in front of it. Hey, how was it out there? I don't like being cold. I have remote start on my car through my phone. That's how bad it is. I won't go out to the garage to get in my truck without starting it for a little bit and let it get warmed up. But dry suit diving fixes that quite a bit. And full face mask is a game changer because now your face is not getting wet as well. But I love teaching ice diving. It's definitely a unique experience. Altitude diving, if you plan on diving around here, altitude diving is kind of a neat course. And we'll teach you about why altitude's different and what to be aware of that. And then obviously solo diving is way past where you guys are at. I encourage my dive guides to take it. It teaches you how to dive independently of other people. Next slide, please. Oh, cool. And then if you want to get into the cool stuff like I like, you can start heading towards extended range, advanced rec. That means with advanced rec means you can penetrate the wreck. You can go in, you know how to run a line and find your way back out of the wreck, because finding your way out of the wreck is just as important as finding your way in. Decompression, things like that. So we talked a little bit about it. I want you guys to think about this. I would love to see anybody in this course that would be interested in moving up into the dive guide program. What we do is we invite you out like Josh to come into more classes, get more skill, take more time, understand. And you guys have the promise from me that if I teach you a course and you want to audit that course again after I've taught it to you, please just call, text, write, email, whatever makes you happy. Just let me know that you're coming. So I'm just aware. That's all. Just want a heads up. So I've got a numbers count. You're welcome to come and take another course with me of the same course. I'm happy to do so. And the other thing you'll find on my Teach Me to Dive page, if I teach a course, I generally videotape it. Your guys' Monday course is online on YouTube, and you're able to go in and rewatch that course. I put them up there for my amusement as well as yours, but you can also take a preview of any course that I've taught that's up there. By all means, if you want to look at altitude, look at altitude. I've got nitrox up there, look at nitrox. You will not get certified in that process without going through the class with me, so I can make sure that you're satisfied, because I will not sign you off and you're not certified, able to do it without the certification. So be aware, but you can certainly audit any class online as well and get an idea what it's about. But Dive Master Dive Guide, we treat it as a mentorship. We guide you through the process. I put my arms around you. I didn't put my arms around Steven. He's a little smelly, but everybody else I put my arm around and I try and help them through the process and find where they want to go with this. I just like picking on Steven, by the way. He's just fun to pick on. But we try and help you get that process. A dive guide is the person on a dive trip that is able to spot the problems before they happen. That's the simplest, easiest answer to what is a dive guide. They're the one that sees the problems first and solves them before they become problems. We'd love to have you as part of that. Next slide, please. Next slide. So let's just jump into it. What's the purpose of a BC, guys? Is it B? Right on. You guys learned a little bit about it. It definitely controls and helps you get up and get down. My wife jokingly calls the button the elevator button. It is not for that. You shouldn't be using it to rise out of the water column. You should be swimming and then floating at the surface with it. But say, it provides surface flotation. You guys figured that out pretty darn quick, right? Neutral buoyancy, as you guys got down, some of us did a little bit better than others. I saw that I was pretty impressed with. We were able to get that point with a little bit of air and hover, right? So next slide, please. So there's 3 basic rules of scuba stated in their proper order and importance. What are they?
Yeah, it's deep.
Good job, guys. I love the teamwork on that, by the way. Next slide. So the basic rules of scuba, I have to say this at least 42 times by standard through every course. The first rule of scuba is breathe continuously. This is not a breath hold sport. Breathe continuously. Now I only have to say it 40 more times. We're good to go. What was the second rule of scuba? Exactly. And what's the third rule of scuba? Exactly. So I got a question. Here's your situation. We've all showed up at Florida at the same time. We just happened to book the same boat together. It was a weird coincidence. You guys heard about it and thought, man, that sounds like a cool boat to be on. And we're on the Narcosis together, which is one of my favorite boats to dive. Narcosis and Little Deeper are my 2 favorite boats to dive because I love this snarly captain. All he's missing is a patch and a peg leg. What the hell are you doing on my boat? You know, he's just that guy. I just love this guy. He's constantly mean to everybody. I love it. We've all gotten on this boat. We're all sitting there together. And you guys see me on the boat with 2 tanks ready to go. And the dive master pops out, and we're going to do printing press today. Printing press is, we're going to drop in on a drift, and it's 150-foot depth. We're going to be down we're looking for 30 minutes of bottom time and probably 35 to 40 minutes of decompression obligation on this dive. What you guys do? You got Steven over here. What do you guys do? Absolutely. Anybody can call a dive at any time for any reason. Dive within your limits and your ability. You start hearing those scary things like deep or past 60 feet, because I'm certifying you guys to 60 feet. Don't be afraid to speak up. Who's responsible for your dive? You are. In the end, you are responsible for you. Absolutely, you can do buddy checks. You should do buddy checks. Always do buddy checks. But the buddy you need to check on first and foremost to make sure that you're ready to be that person is what has 2 thumbs and should check out their own damn gear? This guy, right? So be that guy, be that, or that girl, or person, whatever your preferred pronoun is. I want to make sure we're equal in all. So make sure you never dive alone and beyond your training or level of ability, right? With it past your comfort, training, or ability. Now the problem is my comfort level is probably a lot different on all things. I'm not that guy that's afraid to jump out of a plane, right? Intentionally on an unknown shoot. I just stupid that way. I've just never had a lot of fear in my life, unfortunately. I'll try a lot of dumb things, but what steps me back is I try and stay within my standards, which is within my ability. I could probably do that. Or my training. Oh, yeah. So that's how I look at it. Next slide, please. So we've got Steven prepared to talk about the concept of buoyancy, I believe.
Thank you. I'm just gonna hold it. Okay, learning objectives. Why do you want to be buoyant? Not only does it make your diving more comfortable, it helps with the safety of your dive. A lot of diving incidences are caused because people don't maintain their buoyancy. You can shoot up real quick, right, and then not breathe properly, and then have lung overexpansion injuries. You can overweight, right? If you're overweighted, then you're going to sink, and you're going to have a harder time maintaining neutral buoyancy, which we'll go over here in a little bit. Plus, if you can maintain neutral buoyancy, you just look cooler. So, big thing of the concept of buoyancy is Archimedes. There's a bunch of fancy words in it. Can you click the next slide? I want to see if it's in here. Next slide, please. Might go back. Okay, yeah, go back. The Archimedes principle. There's a bunch of fancy words. You can read it in your book. But essentially, all it says is you can either be negatively buoyant, positively buoyant, or neutrally buoyant. That all has to do with your density and your weight, right? So density is weight over volume. So if you're heavier than the liquid that you're in, that you're displacing, in this case it's water, then you are going to sink. And if you are lighter, if you're less dense than the liquid that you're in, you're going to float, right? So if you're sinking, that is negatively buoyant. If you're floating, that is positively buoyant. And then if you're just kind of hanging out, not moving up or down or anything like that, that is neutrally buoyant. Pretty quick section. Things that can help your buoyancy is being properly weighted, having the right of air in your BC, right? So something that I'm sure we've covered already, but if not, then we'll talk about it a little bit now. The deeper you go, right, the more the volume compresses, right? I think it's Boyle's law, PV1 equals PV2, pressure times volume 1 equals pressure times volume 2, right? So the deeper you go, the higher the pressure, the less volume, right? So when you have less volume, you become more dense, so you sink faster, right? So you become negatively buoyant, right? So you, as you're going down, you always want to add a little bit of air into your BC so that you maintain neutral buoyancy. Whose dog? You don't know whose dog that is? Yours now. Couple things that'll help. Your weight system, right? You want to make sure you have the right amount of weight in there. Obviously, if you have too much, you're going to sink faster, and if you don't have enough, which I think a bunch of you experienced on Monday night, you won't be able to sink, right? So it's big. Care and maintenance of your buoyancy system, right? That's just your BC. Whenever you're in a pool, you're diving in an ocean, or you're really anytime you dive, you want to make sure you clean off your equipment, and that's just using some fresh water, filling it halfway full when you're out, and then storing it when it's completely dry. That's everything. I'm gonna do way better.
Oh, did they?
I said I had to make money. All right. Go ahead and you covered this, right? The buoyancy.
I did buoyancy.
All right. We'll skip. All right. Absolute pressure. So while you're sitting on the surface, we're a little less than an atmosphere because of the altitude, but in theory, at sea level, you have an entire atmosphere of pressure sitting on top of you, which is the weight of the 90,000 feet of atmosphere above us. In diving, water obviously weighs a lot more. We have freshwater and saltwater, two different weights. Everybody did the homework, right? .03. Oh, you did it in metric.
That's what they said. That was the video. And you can switch it.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
So, what's that in pounds? Oh, and we're also in cubic feet now instead of cubic meters. It's you know? Huh? Very close. 64.4. Saltwater or freshwater? Saltwater is heavier. The other one is 62.4. So, very close. You got between them. So, as we descend in the water column, the weight of the water adds up really, really quickly. And it ends up being about every 33 feet for seawater and every 34 feet for freshwater. You add an entire additional atmosphere of pressure. So we certify you to 60 feet. How many atmospheres of pressure is on your body when you get down to 60 feet? 3, because we already have 1 atmosphere. And then we add 2 more. Yep, it is tricky. And that is the difference between absolute pressure So absolute pressure is all of the pressure on us. So we don't notice 1 atmosphere because we're just so used to it. And we add 1 atmosphere every, we're just going to say 30 for easy numbers, every 30 feet we go down. So at 30 feet, you're at, we'll do 33 because most people dive in the salt water. 33 feet, you hit 2 atmospheres. 66 feet, you hit 3. 99, you hit 4 atmospheres of pressure. So it adds up really, really quickly how much pressure's on you. Now, absolute pressure is defined as
B. Wait.
you were so confident and then you changed your answer, but you were right the first time. It is the total pressure. Absolute is total. So anything absolute is everything. Gauge pressure, however, is just the indicated pressure on your gauge. So gauge pressure can change with depth. Absolute pressure is all of the pressure added together. Everybody remembers Boyle, right? Yeah, Stephen does. So Boyle, obviously, if you want to learn a ton about him, take the Science of Diving class. We're just going to cover very basic. P1 times V1 equals P2 times V2, which means if you have a pressure at a volume and you change the pressure, you will also change the volume. Why is this important to you? Your lungs, yes. You guys breathe air? Absolutely. The further you go, the less air you have. At 80 feet, or excuse me, at 25 feet, an 80 cubic foot tank lasts me about 90 minutes. The other day, we were out diving and I had like 49 minutes on my tank. So a 3,000 PSI tank, I had 1,500 PSI left. So I'd only used 1,500 PSI in 49 minutes. And then somebody dropped their mask at about 70 feet. So I just was like, well, I got a little bit of air left. Let's see if I can't find it real quick. Swam down to 70 feet, came back up, 15 minutes, burnt the remaining 1,000 PSI I had to burn. So it burns a lot faster when you're at depth because the pressure will change how that air affects your lungs. You still need to breathe 2 liters of air, but now you have all that extra pressure on you. All right, going back to what Stephen taught you, an object immersed in water will be buoyed upward by a force of?
That's Archimedes' principle. I didn't actually say the definition.
Okay. It's equal. Mm-hmm. So the weight of the water that it displaces is the trick question. Yeah. So this may or may not be on the test. Just saying. It is equal. An object immersed in water will be buoyed upward by a force equal to the weight of the water it displaces. So Archimedes' principle, the reason they call it Archimedes' principle is Archimedes was commissioned by the king because he thought the goldsmith was ripping him off. And long story made very, very short, he was sitting in a bathtub and he realized that he was kind of fat and he displaced X amount of water, and he's like, well, I can probably measure the volume of something with water. And so he ended up putting the crown in water, displacing the water, measuring the weight of the water, and it turns out the goldsmith was ripping off the king and didn't end well for him, but it worked out really well for the rest of us because now we know that the water displaced by an object is equal to its weight. Little eureka moment. All right, panic. Who's my worry wart? It is D, absolutely. Taking specialty training, knowing how to deal with what you're coming up against, honestly evaluating your diving limitations. If you're not Ben, don't try to dive like Ben. There's so much fun to be had in the water without getting to Ben's level. Eventually, yes, you'll end up at his level, but you can have fun within your own limitations as long as you honestly evaluate them. Properly maintaining your total diving system. This is very, very important. If you take care of your gear will take care of you. Use of the MySSI logbook is important because it is absolutely A. Reason number one, we want to win the aggressor trip, right? Everybody wants to win that. I didn't win it. Maybe you guys can. Take me along. I fit in a suitcase. Accurate record of your personal information in dives. How many people remember how much weight they had on Monday? But if you put it in your logbook, guess what? You just open it up and it's right there. This is especially important if you use rental gear and you come in, you're like, well, I dove a 7mm wetsuit with this much weight. You guys only have 5mm wetsuits, so how much weight do you think I need? And they can give a pretty good guess based off of that because you have the record of everything you did. Contains medical history and provides important emergency information. Things do go wrong, you know? So it is great to have that. Hopefully you don't have a history of seizures, but if you do, it's all in there. And future dives, you guys haven't been to Ryrie yet, but there's a very long walk from where we park to where we get in the water, especially later in the season when that water's really low. And it's really awful to get all the way down there and realize you're 2 pounds too light, and now you can't sink, and you have to go all the way back up to your car to get the weight. So, all right, effects of pressure on the surface and underwater. This is one I'm allowed to do, yeah? Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So this is the part of the class that I ask you to please be patient. Realize that these are fairly rare things to happen. Hold your seats. Don't get scared on me. It's all good. We'll get through this together pretty easily. So the effects of pressure underwater, we're going to talk about pressure-related diving injuries, such as arterial gas embolism. And yes, I practice saying these over and over again so I can say them correctly. Mediastinal emphysema, subcutaneous emphysema, and neothorax. Okay? Next slide, please. Really? Wow. Chest tube?
They actually had to go.
Yeah, so they had to do a chest tube. Put a needle, basically a needle through, and absolutely, and it'll allow the pressure to decrease and allow the air to escape more accurate. Not so much pop it, but allow the air to escape would be more accurate. Absolutely. So the basic respiratory system, as we go through, we're doing this all together, right? We're breathing in, breathing out. But what happens from that point once we breathe in? As we breathe in, that air is going into our lung structure and it hits the alveoli, right? And the alveoli has a primary job is to take that air, push it out into our circulatory system, right? And as it goes out the circulatory system, it oxygenates our blood, muscles, our bone, everything else. And then as that gets used up, it pushes out carbon dioxide, goes back into our circulatory system, eventually hits through that because of the heart pump back into our lungs and exhaled out, right? Exhaled out is in the form of carbon dioxide, right? Basic stuff. We all kind of know what's going on in that. Now, question for you, how many of these little alveoli do we have in our lungs? 300 million. 300 million of these little bitty sacs that convert air that we're breathing into our bloodstream. There's a ton of these little boogers, right? And so they're taking that in, and they're so it's able to oxygenate everything else that's going on, right? So that's the basic circulatory system. Next slide, please. So the basic next slide. We just talked about that. So we talked about Boyle. Boyle was a crazy Scottish guy that lived in the 1600s. This guy was wild. His whole thing about studying the effects of pressure was he put snakes in a contained cube cylinder. He tied it to a rope, and he threw it in the ocean. I know they also don't wear underwear to their kilts, so they're a little on the, and it's cold in Scotland. I don't know if you've been to Scotland, but it's freaking cold. It's like Idaho times 2. That wind just cuts right through your butt, right? It's just cold. So he was a little touched in the head anyway. But what he discovered is as pressure increases, volume decreases. As pressure decreases, volume increases. So what this means to you, we have a balloon with 1 cubic foot of air in it at 33 feet. What happens to that 1 cubic foot of air as we ascend in the water column from 33 feet to the surface? It expands, right? How much does it expand? Just so we make sure we hit that. Two times. 2 times is exactly right. Because we're at 2 atmosphere to 1 atmosphere, it doubles in size. So 1 cubic foot becomes 2 cubic feet. So if we were to make an analogy, kind of a comparison between two things, what are our lungs? Basically, they're balloons. They hold about 2 liters of air, roughly. If you're a lovely young lady like you gals, 1.8 to 1.7 is a pretty typical for a woman. For a guy, it's about 2.1, 2.2, right? In terms of liter size. And if we're using those liters, I don't know what that is in feet. I'm sorry. I do a lot of stuff in liters because, believe it or not, Americans, and I'll just say this to the internet as well, the metric system is easier. It really is so much easier. When you get in tech diving, you will praise and love the metric system quite a bit. But how do we get here? Oh, overexpansion injury. Okay, so here's the thing we talk about. Why should you always breathe? Because as you come up, if you hold your breath, your lungs can pop, literally. Anybody want to take a guess on what the shallowest amount of rise increase in the water column it took to pop somebody's lungs? We're getting closer. 4. So water, in fresh water, the pressure changes how much, David, in fresh water? Salt water is 4.375. Per foot. Per foot. Basically, yeah. So half a psi per foot in fresh water. So as we come up, 4 feet is a 2 psi change. If you expand your lungs and you hold your breath, it only takes 2 psi to cause a lung puncture. Always breathe. Please, for the love of God, always breathe. 38 more times. Go back to the others. So there's a varied amount of different kinds of overexpansion injuries that you could deal with. The first one's called an arterial gas embolism. Basically what that means is that air bubbles up from an expansion of holding your breath into the arterial gas network. Now, just like it sounds, arterial gas, you get a bubble in that. Back in the 80s, when I was growing up, they had all these murder mysteries. How did he die? We can't figure, he had a heart attack. Oh, we figured out the nurse went in and stabbed him with a needle and filled him up with air. That's an arterial gas embolism. Basically what happens is bubbles get into the bloodstream. They cause blockages. Blockages are bad, in case you hadn't figured that out yet, right? So they can go up and they can cause paralyzation in your arms because blood flow stops. They can cause paralyzation in your neck and extremities. But even worse, they can get into your brain, which is the most common because as you're going up, you're in what position? Typically the vertical, and air goes which way? Up, right? So it can get in your brain and cause blockages in your brain. You can lose vision, vertigo, disorientation, nausea, loss of vision, narrowing of vision. Shortness, being short or grumpy with other people around you, right? So these are the signs and symptoms of an arterial gas embolism or an embolism of any kind, a brain issue, right? They can actually end up causing death because they can cause you to pass out, cause you to stop breathing, cause you to be able to walk. So let me stop right there just for a moment. As we talk about these, the statistic on this is if you can get to a medical provider in a chamber within 4.5 hours of determining you have any of this, you have a 92% chance of living and having 100% recovery. Pretty good statistics, right? That's from Dan, that's not from me. So that's what an arterial gas embolism is when it bubbles up, gets into the bloodstream. Next one's a mediastinal emphysema, when you get bubbles that come up We're going to take just a moment and let the grandkids and daughters get sweat. This is my grandkids. This is my amazing number 1 daughter.
Oh,
This is, let's see, you're now number 6. So,
yeah. I'm number 6.
well, I had 4 kids, and then one of them took a husband, and so he's you're number 7. Because Jeffrey, you're number 7. I'm sorry.
7.
Because Emmeline's 6, Travis is 5. You're number 7. There we go. Number 7 kid.
Have a good class.
Thanks, guys. One of the greatest joys of my life is bringing my family in and putting them in the pool and diving with them and having fun. So this is very much a family activity, and it's very fun that to be able to do that kind of stuff. So that's my why, is just walked out the door. So metacyval emphysema, what happens is in the metacyval cavity, the chest cavity, we have air escapes from a point, usually from the lungs. It causes, as it goes into the metacyval cavity, what happens is it actually can bubble up, pressing against the heart, pressing against the lung structure. Typically what you'll see is a very overall shift in the metacyval cavity. The chest, where you'll see the actual the rib structure will compress to one side, and it'll actually press in the lungs, making the person not be able to breathe, and making the heart have a harder time beating, because all of a sudden there's, how hard is it to, anybody have brothers here? Anybody have your brother sit on top of you, wrestle you to the ground and sit on top of you, or your dad? Well, if you've ever had your brother sit on your chest, it's hard to breathe, right? Well, if you have a big air bubble in your chest pushing against your heart, it's hard for your heart to actually do what it's supposed to be doing, and that's beat. So that's where metacyval emphysema. The only thing you can do for that really is get them on pure oxygen, get them to a medical provider. Subcutaneous emphysema is when it gets between the skin and the bone. You see bulges. Typically where you see metacyval emphysema present is around the neck and under the chin. You'll see the neck puff up, and you'll see the cheek puff up as well. You've got air bubbles in the neck and around the cheek. One of the most common places you'll see metacyval or subcutaneous emphysema is in car accidents. That's why we have 4 chambers here in Idaho Falls, because the sudden impact of an airbag at 4 billion miles an hour, whatever an airbag is. I'm not an airbag expert. 4,000 miles per hour hits your chest, causes air to pop out of where it's not supposed to be and go into the subcutaneous region, causing puffs. It's also pretty common to happen after basic surgeries, specifically like knee surgery, any type of surgery like that, right? So that's why we have it. And then finally, pneumothorax is when air gets choked into the throat area, into the thorax area, and it causes you to have difficulty breathing. And you see, again, it's puffing around the throat area. Next slide, please. So overexpansion injuries can be prevented by all the above, right? Never holding your breath while diving. Number 1 rule of scuba diving, always breathe, right? Now I only have to say it 35 more times. Sweet, I'm getting there. Learning correct breathing patterns, reinforcing this in the classroom, pool, at open water training. So let's talk about proper breathing for a minute. We hear about this all the time. We think about it during diving. We think, that's not proper breathing. There's no human on this planet that breathes normally actually like that. Not one, right? How do you breathe? About 80% of the top and about 40% of empty, right? You breathe in that kind of middle area, that comfort zone. We never empty our lungs completely, and we never fill them completely, right? We just breathe in that comfort. That's scuba diving. Just breathe normally. Breathe like a human. You don't have to be some sort of, Hulk out there. Don't do that. It's not good. So breathe normally. Now here's a couple pro tips for you. There is something called ideal breathing. Every one of us in this room, I'm going to tell you right now, I hate to tell you, you have learned to breathe wrong. Your dad taught you wrong. You can ask for allowance increase tonight. I would ask for double, to be honest, because he taught you something bad. There you go. So I'm guessing double of 0 is still 0. There we go. So, hey, I was working for you, but you got to work with me a little bit too. So how we should breathe is how babies breathe. And if you ever go to or if you have a kid, who has kids here? I have kids, obviously. You have kids. No kids? Ever been to the where they hatch them? The incubators, the nursery.
But, I imagine
Yeah, they belly breathe, right? And what you notice is they belly breathe. There's a reason for that. What you'll find is 60% of your body's oxygenation comes from the bottom 30% of your lungs. I'll say that one more time. 60% of your body's needed oxygenation comes from the bottom 1/3 of your lungs. So where do you want the good oxygen to go? To the bottom of your lungs. So simply enough, how you should breathe is into the belly, into the lungs, out from the lungs, and out from the belly. If you do that, you will go through less air. It's just that simple. It really is. The other piece of it is just kind of pro tip for you as you're getting ready to do that. You get that good diaphragmatic, relaxed breathing in. You're getting that good belly breathing in. You get which gives you the beer. This is why I have a beer gut. Just kidding. It's not really. It's because I'm lazy and I don't work out anymore. But you could also reduce the amount of air and gas you go through on a dive by simply doing this. Stop before you make your descent. Find your zen. Get your mind right. Relax. Whatever happened yesterday, whatever fight you got in with Steven that night, and because he did something stupid, and I know it's Steven's fault. Whatever happened, whatever's going on at work, whatever's going on at school, at whatever computer, whatever Java or Python did to you that day, it doesn't matter. You're in the water. Whatever you're doing in the water is better than anything you're going to do anywhere else, right? Get your mind right. Relax. Everything's going to be awesome. Get your breathing right. Relax it. Get that good yoga breathing going on. And then finally, get your body relaxed. And then once you descend and you get to your point, stop again. Mind, breath, body, and then dive. If you do those two things with find your Zen place and get your breathing right, you'll go through so much less air. Now, bad news for you, she's going to kick your butt on breathing. It's just going to happen. I'm very proud. For many years, I beat my wife on sac rate, and then until she finally really got it dialed in and figured out, and now I beat her 1 out of 4 times. It's not by a ton she beats me. Usually a couple hundred PSI she'll beat me. When I beat her, it's usually about 100 to 200 PSI in that area. We're close, so it's nice because we breathe very similar, but I work very diligently on it. She just does it. It's sickening, but she's amazing. So find those proper breathing habits. And then dive with a properly maintained high-quality double diving system. One of the things, if you have your own regulator, have it tuned, have it checked out once a year or before any big trip. It definitely makes a difference on how it's tuned and how it's working. So some of us out there, I have, 16, 18 regulator sets for just me. And I have some tuned in different ways so that they'll hold a higher pressure gas at the beginning. I have some that'll are designed more for a lower pressure gas. I very much like a race car. I tune them specifically to what I'm doing, right? And because of that, they act differently as well. You can have that for yourself, right? And get them tuned perfectly. Next slide, please. So, overexpansion injury, what do you do? What happens? You notice I come to the top of the boat. I'm like, God damn it. Oxygen. Stop. ABCs, right? Airway, breathing, chest, right? Get that person laying down. Get them on oxygen. Call for first aid. All of what we just talked about are going to be treated with oxygen. They're going to be treated with the ABCs. Simple enough. They're going to be treated with calling the Coast Guard or your medical provider immediately. If you can get them to a chest pressure changer within about 4.5 hours, you've got about a 92% chance of a 100% recovery. So, simple enough. That's all there is to it. Monitor them. Hydrate them. Don't be afraid. Most overexpansion injuries can help be alleviated with good hydration as well, right? To get that good blood flowing so it's not syrupy. Next slide, please. So, the most serious of these overexpansion injuries, though, is which?
It's D.
D is exactly right. Good job. Go to the next slide. Next slide. There we go. All right, so decompression sickness. Caisson's disease. Anybody heard that term, caisson? On the thing? As the caissons go rolling along. I don't know. I'm just kidding. I think it is, but. So, caisson's disease is a term that was coined in about the 1800s when they're building the Brooklyn Bridge. They use these big metal tubes to send the divers down to the bottom so they could do their work. The big metal tube. What they discovered is they'd send them down there. They'd work for 12 hours at about 200 feet or so. And when they pulled them back up, they pulled them up pretty quickly because they didn't really understand what was going on. And these guys would get really sick. They'd be in pain. They discovered very quickly that when they sent them back down, the pain went away. They called it Caisson's disease. So their solution at the time was just, well, let's have them work more hours, which actually increased the response of Caisson's disease, which was decompression sickness. But what that was is as we go down in the water column, we are increasing the partial pressure of what we're breathing. Now, what does that mean? Here's what it means. Right now, we're at the surface. We're breathing 21% what? Oxygen. Exactly right. Good job. And 79% what? What's the other? Nitrogen. You get a high five too. Everybody gets high fives, right? I'm a big high fiver. So that's what we're breathing at the surface. As we go down, Boyle kicks in. It's actually Henry's law more accurately, but basically an idea of Boyle is pressure goes in. In the same space, now we're breathing the equivalent at 33 feet of 158% nitrogen and 42% oxygen. The partial pressure of the gas that we're breathing changes. It increases because we have the same amount of gas in a smaller space, in the same, or twice more gas in the same space. Sorry, it all compresses in, right? It's getting smaller and smaller. So as we go down to 66 feet, now all of a sudden we're breathing 63% oxygen. Make sense? And 200 something percent of nitrogen. Well, our bodies are designed to do one major, amazing thing. Anybody know what that is? I think this is just absolutely amazing. They're designed to be equalized, to whatever conditions we're in. Perfect example. My kids flew out here from Florida, and they get out here and they're used to 105 and about 1,000% humidity. They get out here, and this morning my grandson, I thought it was wonderful. I had the fan on in the living room going a little bit, the back door open a little bit, and it was 50 degrees in the house, and I'm like, oh, this is wonderful. I'm running around in shorts and a t-shirt, and he's got a sweatshirt on and a blanket. He's equalized to Florida. That is absolute wintertime for him. That's like Christmas time to him. I'm like equalized to this, right? No big deal. My daughter, we went out to Ryrie on Saturday, and she says, what's the water temp, Dad? I says, I think it's probably 64, 63. She says, oh, I'm not getting in that damn water. I don't get in the water until it's at least 76 degrees. In Florida right now, the water at the beach is 85 to 84. That's their water temp. And they don't go diving, or she doesn't get in the water in the wintertime because it's too cold. And it's 78 degrees. Oh my goodness, right? So climatization, right? Our bodies are designed to get equalized. So what this means to you is as you go down to the water column, we get down to that 33 feet. We're now breathing an equivalent of 42% oxygen and 158% nitrogen. Okay, that partial pressure, that new higher percentage of nitrogen will go through our system and our bloodstream, and it goes into what's called the fast and the slow tissue. Now, Robert Bullman theorized that there's 16 separate tissue compartments throughout our body that absorb nitrogen at different speeds, from slow to fast, just like it sounds. He tried to make it very visual for us, right? Think of a sponge. Anybody ever had different kinds of sponges that kind of absorb stuff differently in their kitchen? Absolutely. You get that little scrubber brush sponge. It doesn't do a really good job. We get that good super soft one. It's like, oh yeah, they just got everything up. The bounty picker upper, right, kind of comes to mind. So we have that same idea in our bodies. We have fast tissue, which is like our brain stem, our spine, very fast. It absorbs gas really quickly. It expels gas very quickly, right? That we have things like, some of us have a little bit of fat around us, and fat doesn't absorb things really fast, right? It takes time. It's very slow to absorb that over time. To perfusion and diffusion is our magic terms for the day. So it takes time. So our bodies will absorb that over time. But once it absorbs it and we start to come back up, that nitrogen has to go somewhere. It has to re-equalize, and our body will want to equalize to whatever we're at. So if we go down to 33 feet, we're at 158%, we come up, that excess nitrogen wants to come out of our body, out of our fast and slow tissues, through the bloodstream, and out through the alveolar in our lungs and out through exhale. But here's the problem. If you come up too quickly, as it comes up, it changes from what we call bubble seeds to silent bubbles to dangerous bubbles. That nitrogen will actually turn into bubbles as we start coming up. Now that's what's causing DCS, decompression sickness. Make sense, guys? Kind of a big topic, right? Interesting enough, if you go from 1,000-foot elevation to 10,000-foot elevation, you go for a run and you get sick, that's decompression sickness as well. Same thing. Our body's equalizing to a lower partial pressure of nitrogen. You're getting sick. Now, as we look at that decompression sickness, we start getting a few things that happen. Sore, joint pain, things like that. That's decompression sickness. That's in the beginning stages when decompression sickness is starting to present. It presents at full level 1 as a rash. The nitrogen bubbles are trying to go somewhere, but they're small enough that they're able to perfuse through the skin. And it causes a rash. So that's level 1. Level 2, bubbles are a little larger. They can't get through the skin and they start getting trapped in the joints. They start causing blockages. They start causing pain. Now, interesting enough, anybody ever had a really good viral illness where you're just sore and sick on the couch and just felt like the whole weight of the world had just crapped on top of you? Yeah. What it is your body's white blood cells saw something in your body and they said, dude, you're not supposed to be here, man. You're out of here. And they'll go to war, right? And anybody who has been to war will tell you war is not good for anything. And that's what's going on in your body. It goes to war. So it sees these bubbles, these nitrogen bubbles in your system, and they say, wait, you ain't supposed to be here, dude. Duke it out, right? And so they get to fighting, and you get sore. They get trapped in your joints, and you cause joint pain, right? That's level 2 DCS. Soreness in the muscles. And it can actually present as narrowing of vision and nausea as well. Joint pain, things like that. Level 3 is when it starts getting very serious, and that's where you start getting the very serious blockages. The level 3 is when it starts hitting things like vertigo, disorientation, irritability, things like that. Very much like an AGE, just a different gas, right? That's where it gets really dangerous. So that's what it looks like. Now, here's my reason why you should take nitrox. In nitrox, what we do is we replace some of that nitrogen with oxygen instead. So if I were to use a nitrox blend of 32%, it means I'm using 32% oxygen and 68% nitrogen instead. I've replaced a portion of the nitrogen with oxygen instead. So I'm using a lower partial pressure of nitrogen. So as I multiply out a lower number, I get a lower number at depth, right? So if I get to 33 feet, instead of having 158% nitrogen in my system, I only have 136% nitrogen, which means if I drank less beer, I'd have less headache and hangover the next day, right? Make nice simple analogy. If I eat less cake, I get less sick, right? Anybody ever eat half a sheet of cake by yourself and then just really regret it later? Admit it. Cookie dough, I got you. I'm right here with you. We've all done that. I mean, we've all had that where we've overindulged in our favorite whatever it is, and about a half hour after, we're like, oh God, I shouldn't have done that. If you do less of that, you get less of the pain, right? Mine is grapes. Now, I can sit down and eat a thing of grapes by myself. I love the cotton candy grapes. I just will just knock them out as I'm working. Over the course of an hour, I'll eat a whole big bowl of them, and then there's things that we don't want to talk about later that happen because of that is just it's like, oh my God, I shouldn't have done that. And I expel things that I ate in 1972, right? It's just not a pleasant thing to do. But, same thing with nitrogen. If you take up less nitrogen at the beginning, you have less nitrogen off gas as well, which reduces your chances of getting DCS. DCS, decompression sickness, is a result of the nitrogen coming out of your system too quickly. So how do we prevent this? That was a great question, Sam. Thank you, by the way, for asking that. How do we prevent DCS? Very simple. We're going to breathe through the process. We're not going to stay down too long. We're not going to go too deep, and we're not going to come up too fast. So when we talked about that 30 feet per minute, that's what we're talking about. Stay at 30 feet per minute or slower. It's okay to go slower. I'm not gonna fault you. Nobody's gonna fault you for coming up slower. It allows your body to off-gas that nitrogen at a proper pace. Make sense? So, Lily, explain that to me in terms I'll understand.
I was writing just the last part.
Explain to me why I should not come up too quickly. Or
Oh, if you come up.
Mhm.
So
Absolutely. Great example. I love it. And so as it's not just the pressure changes, but it allows your body to off gas those bubbles more slowly. So let's use a visual example. Anybody ever had a 2-liter bottle of Coke? Anybody ever picked up a 2-liter bottle of any type of carbonated drink? So I've got this carbonated drink. In fact, I happen to have one. Woohoo! Anybody drink Coke? Who drinks Coke? Perfect. Somebody's going to have to drink this after I get done playing with it. Oh, that's a Dr. Pepper. I'm sorry. I'm from Georgia. All right. I haven't shaken this up yet. This is our body. Okay. I know I'm very cylindrical. This is our body, right? We go down to 33 feet. We've adjusted. No bubbles in our system yet. If we come up too quickly, this is what we have to deal with, right? As we come up, those bubbles have to go somewhere. Now, if I just crack that open really fast, what's going to happen? Shit's going to go everywhere, right? Excuse my language. I'm sorry. Bubbles are going to go everywhere, right? That's what's going to happen if we come up too quickly. What we have to do is come up slowly. Very slowly. That's what happens with nitrogen. Coming up slowly allowed it not to, instead of going and getting all over us, and I saw the worried look on all your faces, by the way. So, we come up slowly. Here you go.
Oh my god, that's so wonderful.
There you go. No
Thank you
DCS.
very much.
Absolutely. And you get a free Coke out of the deal. So, that's DCS. The bubbles coming up in our system so quickly that they go everywhere. They cause problems. But by coming up slowly, we had the bubbles, but as you saw it, they were able to come out and not be problematic. And that's our term we're looking for. We're trying to get to the point where our bubbles are not problematic. Now, I told you guys that my whole goal is to teach you guys to do nothing. What I'm really teaching you guys in my Mr. Miyagi way of wax on, wax off, is that I want to help you understand how to control the size of the bubbles in your body while you dive. That's diving. That really is what diving is about. How do I control those so that they don't become problematic and I'm safe? So that's my wax on, wax off for the day. Next slide, please. So in air, at 1 ATA, the partial pressure of nitrogen is what? And the partial pressure of oxygen is what? Who's got it for me? What do you think? It is you both get a high five. Good job. Next slide, please. All right, the most effective breathing pattern for scuba diving is, I'm going to choose somebody else. A deep, balanced inhalation followed by a long exhalation without any pause between inhaling and exhaling. Everybody agree with that? Good, because you're right. Next slide. All right, so decompression sickness we've talked about. So there's this great guy, Haldane. Haldane was a genius. He was studying diving techniques back in the early 1900s and understanding that the effects of pressure. And what he came up with as he's working for the Navy for their deep divers is that when we get to a critical ratio of 2 to 1, twice the amount of pressure as at the surface as what we get to, then we need to do something called a safety stop. We need to stop in the water column and go slowly and allow the nitrogen to come off. Make sense? When we get to the point where we've doubled the pressure. Well, the thing about it is Workman came along in the 50s. He's like, dude, you were so close, man. Dude. And he talked just like that. I saw the recording. He's like, dude, you're like this close, man. He was, he was Jamaican and smoking weed. No, I'm just kidding. Workman was, Robert Workman was an absolute genius. He came up with the idea, says, you're close, but not quite there. Where you need to be is at the critical difference. When that critical difference becomes 2 to 1 of nitrogen. So that means you can breathe nitrox and you can go to a deeper depth and still be there. Hey, Josh, will you go up a couple slides back to that one right there? So what Robert Workman was saying is that if I'm breathing nitrox, I can go to a deeper depth to get to that critical difference of 158%. So on 32%, I can actually go to 42 feet and I get to the critical difference instead of 33 feet. Make sense? Because I'm breathing less nitrogen. I've got a lot less nitrogen. So my critical difference is the critical difference of the amount of nitrogen. When I get to a 2 to 1 ratio of nitrogen, that's my critical difference. So in some ways, with nitrox, you can actually dive deeper and it be equal to a shallower depth of oxygen. And you are safer. If you dive the same depth, you are safer. Go back to the original slide we were at. So he came up with that idea that when I get to a doubling pressure of nitrogen and my nitrogen load gets to 158%, that's when the critical difference happens, is when I get to that 158% of nitrogen. So if I'm breathing less nitrogen, that means I can go deeper to get there. Next slide, please. So decompression sickness, what do I do? What does it look like? We kind of talked about that. Narrowing of vision, vertigo, dizziness. Sounded kind of like AGE. Joint pain, soreness, rashes, irritability. Now, if I'm looking at myself or my dive buddy, I need to be aware of this. And I'm going to tell you right now, diving, in my opinion, I've done a lot of sports. I played football. I wrestled for a season. I got kicked out of basketball 2 seasons in a row for being too rough. I boxed through college. I've got some sports under my belt. I like sports. I like being competitive. And man, if we play tiddlywinks, I'll try and beat you. I'm that guy. I'm very competitive. I want to play to my best, and if I lose, that's great. But I want to figure out how I can beat you the next time, right? Play chess even, right? But what we try and figure out is what it's looking like in me. How do I feel? How I go into the water is how I should feel coming out of the water. This is a very, very, very self-aware sport. Now, the good news is some of you should be diving with somebody that you know a little bit. You should have at least a basic understanding of, hopefully you at least know what her favorite ice cream is, right? What is it? Oh, fish food. That's a good one. Ben & Jerry's. I like it. I love the little chocolate caramel fishies. That's a great one. I'm right there with you. You know, hopefully you know a little bit about your dive buddy, right? And so as I look at this and I come out of the water, I should start noticing, how do I feel coming out of the water? You know, now if I'm a hypochondriac, that might be a different thing. But as a general term, I'm taking it as a baseline that we're not hypochondriacs, that I'll understand that if I come out of the water and all of a sudden I have knee pain, that's unusual for me. I'm very self-aware in how I feel in this. But if I know my dive buddy a little bit and all of a sudden I notice that the boat's not moving at all, I might be aware of that, right? Nobody else might be. Or they, you know, how was your dive? It was fine. You know, they're grouchy with you. You might notice that irritability, right? So be aware and start looking at, how is my buddy acting? Is it normal or is it not normal? How am I feeling? Is it normal? Is it not normal? Take in a self-check. Now, one of the weird things that you can say, I'm weird, and I'm okay with that, is I do self-assessments as I dive as well. I am big on this. I will do basic cognitive checks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 3, 2, 1. How am I feeling? Can I do the math? I'm at 60 feet, at 30 feet per minute, plus a 3-minute safety stop. How long will it take me to get to the surface? Do that in my head. Should be 5 minutes, right? Pretty basic stuff. If I can't do that, I know something's wrong. But I do little math quizzes in my head. How do I do that? What does it look like? How long is this? What's my reciprocal? Can I subtract 180 degrees from my current compass course? Little things. When I get to the point where I can't do that, I realize something ain't right. I actually had that happen. I had a hypothermia incident last year. First dive of the season, Yellowstone, the water temperature was 33 degrees. I had a small leak in my dry glove, caused me to have a slow flood into my dry suit. I could feel the sharpness of pain going up. And at about 25 minutes into the dive with my wife, 30 minutes into the dive, I was trying to figure out my time to surface, and I was like, and I knew something wasn't right. I went in and said, okay, and I told her, and I was happy to be able to do this. Hey, I'm done, I'm going up, and I gave her I'm out of this. And I went up, And just by the grace of God, I was able to figure out a safety stop. And luckily, my computer marked off a safety stop for me. And I popped up, and just things weren't right. I just wasn't there cognitively. We swam back to the surface. I took my dry suit off, took my wet undergarments off, my wet t-shirt off, and my wet garment top off. And I was blue on the whole left side of my body. I had gone into full hypothermia. I should have known better. My wife yelled at me. You guys you can yell at me later if you want to. But do those kind of things. Don't be afraid to do some basic cognitive checks. Do some simple math. It's 30 minutes in the dive, and I've gone through 1,000 psi. How much psi will I go through in another 30 minutes? Do things like that. Check your gas regularly, but do cognitive checks. Keep an eye on where you at and how are you feeling. This is a very, very self-aware sport. So, signs and symptoms, be aware what those look like. Simple enough. Pains, vertigo, nausea, anything like that, that's your body trying to say, hey, wait a minute, dude. You know, when you get sick and you start feeling those joint pains and stiffness and cold, and just so you know, my favorite thing to do the thing I do when I get cold is I have an Eddie Bauer sleeping bag it's a mummy bag rated for 30 degrees below zero. I get in that on the couch and I get the hairdryer and I put the hairdryer in with me. It's the most amazing thing ever. That's what I know I'm sick is when I want to be in my sleeping bag with the hairdryer inside. My wife laughs at me every time. It's okay. You can laugh at me too. I'm fine with it. But I'm telling you, if you're sick and you're feeling chills, try it just once and you'd be like, oh yeah, Ben's onto something here. So your body tries to talk to you throughout the process of what's going on. Listen to it, especially during diving. Prevention, simple enough. Don't stay down too long. Don't go too deep. Don't come up too fast. Terrible twos are something to absolutely pay attention to. The treatment for it, ABC is just like AGE. Get them laying down. Treat for shock. Watch them, monitor the airway, the breathing, the chest. Get them on oxygen immediately. Keep them hydrated. Keep them out of the sun. All these things can absolutely help somebody that's going into a decompression issue, right? And then obviously call the Coast Guard immediately. I've got a potential case of DCS. Can you get to me? Where are we going to meet? How are we going to get there? Next slide. I think we probably scared the crap out of you enough, but which of the following would be an inappropriate treatment for a diver exhibiting symptoms of decompression sickness? Exactly. Why? Yeah, but explain that. Why would I want to take somebody down if they're just exhibiting those signs and symptoms?
Why would you or why wouldn't you?
Why wouldn't you?
Why wouldn't you? Because then it's going to just get worse.
Not so much. You're on the right thought process, but you're missing the kind of point is, if I get them underwater to 15 feet to recompress them and they stop breathing, how fun is my AED going to be? That's a lot of fun. It's just going to be a joyful thing for everybody around, right? Because if they stop breathing underwater, doing CPR underwater is definitely not your friend. So all you're doing is creating a secondary issue that you just want to be a part of. So get them to medical treatment, get them to a recompression chamber. Taking back underwater is definitely inappropriate. Next slide. Proper ascent techniques. How do we ascend? How do we ascend the water column? Exactly. Or my grand.
Act like a 17-year-old and you have a class that you don't want to go to.
Exactly right. Or I was going to say, or my grandson who just got in trouble for doing something in the pool, he immediately went very down and he was very slow about coming back up. Oh, Grandpa's going to yell at me again. Take your time. Go slow. Simple enough. You and I are diving along. We've become those fast buddies. We've gone to a truck together. We're going to do our ascent. We come together. Are you okay? Swimming ascent? Good to go? Inflator in hand, face to face. Dump a little air. A little air is the key here. We're going to go ahead and start it up. You're going to start a kicking ascent. If I have cubic foot of air in my back in my BC, at 66 feet, it becomes how many cubic feet of air at the surface? Exactly. So 3 cubic feet of air at the surface. It multiplies 3 times, right? So as I have, if I'm a little bit negative with 1 cubic foot of air in my BC, as I come with the water column, I'll become buoyant to eventually to positively buoyant, right? So we're going to face each other. Inflators in hand, ready to go. Watching our gauge. And we're going to start our swimming ascent gently to the surface, maintaining no faster than how fast? 30 feet per minute. Take your time. Then we're going to get that safety stop. And our safety stop is going to be this, 3 minutes or 5 minutes. That's the sign and symbol for safety stop. Next slide, please. So, nitrogen narcosis, signs and symptoms. This is the mistress of the deep. So, nitrogen has a narcotic effect. It starts at about, anybody know where the shallowest point of nitrogen narcosis was recorded? A little deeper. A lot deeper. 60 feet. Now, how deep am I certifying you guys to?
60 feet.
Coincidence? I think not. No, so nitrogen narcosis, the shallowest depth it was ever recorded is at 60 feet. So, signs and symptoms and prevention. Go to the next slide. I love this little video. It's called How to Tell if Your Buddy is Narked. I like videos too.
Some divers get narked easier than others. It just depends on how deep you go and how susceptible you are to the calls of the nitrogen mistress. Now, as you all probably know, some people do pretty stupid stuff when drunk. All you have to do is visit your local drunk tank at the police station on a Friday night and ask what they're in for. Or if you're the one in the drunk tank, the cops will tell you why you're there in the following morning. But people do some stupid stuff when narked, and most people don't even know they're narked. So it can be useful for you to understand some telltale signs that your buddy is narked so that you can be the designated diver and look after them and get them home safely. And such, hi, I'm Mark, and here are 5 ways to tell if your dive buddy is narked. They keep staring at themselves in your mask. You're effectively drugged by the gas that you are breathing the deeper you go, and such your inhibitions are lessened. And as we all know, we are all narcissists at heart when we lose our inhibitions. No? I mean, let's face it, I'll bet you anything that your social media picture is you scuba diving, isn't it? Narked men and women are like magpies, and they love shiny objects. And when they look at you, they're probably not actually looking and engaging with you, they're just looking at themselves or the mirror copy of themselves from the mirror dimension in the shiny lens of your mask. You find them buddy breathing with a fish. I've actually heard this a couple of times, and this is the other type of drunk, the considerate drunk. These narked individuals will be concerned at all of the fish in the water and their lack of breathing apparatus. After all, they've spent a lot of time learning how important their regulators are and to always keep breathing. So they'll often donate their regulator to these fish that, to be honest, they don't really need it. They wave back at fish. I would do that normally. Hey, birdie. The third type of drunk is the happy drunk, who is observant and sees his crowds of fans in the fishes and all their little fins waving at them, so it would be rude not to wave back, right? Yeah, if your buddy is waving back at the fish, they're probably narked, or, way too young to be scuba diving. What are you looking at me? Mental age. Fish are cool, and they move their pectorals pretty much all the time, but while they are aware that you are there, I'm sorry, but they ain't waving at you. Documentaries, those were. Their mask fogs underwater, and they spit in it. Much like people who defog the outside of their mask before a dive, you aren't going to get much benefit of spitting in your mask during the dive. I have seen this before, and it was a dive guide, so I really hope he wasn't knocked at the time. I just figured he was showing off. Your mask fogs up, and he spits in your mask. Yeah, enough said. Considerate of them, but just stay away from my mask. I can do it myself. At least it's spit and try and wheel it. I wouldn't put it past them. So what have you seen in the wild from the rare underwater species Homo narcosis? Let us know in the comments. Thanks for watching.
Makes it a little more fun to have another point of view on that nitrogen narcosis. And Mr. the Deep. It affects different people in different ways. There's not any hard, fast rule that says if I go to 132 feet, I'm going to get narked, right? The typical effects are start happening at around 100 feet, and it is typically equal to 1 martini on an empty stomach for every 50 feet past 100 feet. And the effects increase exponentially. So when you hit that 100-foot mark, it's equal to 1 martini on an empty stomach. You hit that 150-foot mark, 130-foot mark, it's equal to 4 martinis on an empty stomach. And as you get 160 feet, it's 16 martinis. So be aware nitrogen narcosis is a real thing that happens as well. We were on a dive, saw somebody that was, sound travels how much faster underwater than on the surface? 4 times faster. Good job. I like it. You earned a fist bump. Right on. So we saw this diver. We could hear laughing hysterically. In fact, my wife loves it because when I go diving with you guys in the open water, invariably one of you will do something funny to make me laugh. I laugh fairly easily and enjoy life, but you will hear me laugh at you. Don't worry, I'm laughing at you, not with you. I mean, I'm actually laughing at you. And it's okay. We're having a good time. Please laugh with me and have a little fun too. But we could hear her laughing hysterically, and she was, and we're like, what the? So we went down, got her, brought her back to the boat, and asked her, what the heck were you doing? She says, well, I was parting the ocean so I could see the mermaids. She was definitely narked. It is a real thing that happens. There's a lot of different theories of why that happens. Basically, the idea is as you go down, the nitrogen kicks in and it starts creating a narcotic effect, blocking the neuron's ability to fire between one another and uptake information and process information correctly. So that's the Myers-Overton theory. Next slide, please. So, oxygen toxicity. Yes, ma'am. Reasonably quick, but it depends on the person, depends on how tired they are, the traumatic trauma of the event that happened, coldness of the water, hydration, and your body's process of nitrogen as well and how well it processes. I can tell you for me, I'm a cheap drunk. You take me out and give me a wine cooler, I'll probably be staggering a little bit. In my Marine Corps days, it was much different, I promise you. But I haven't had a drink in 15 years probably. Probably more than that. I'm just trying to be generous. But my son-in-law can drink 4 tall boys and walk a straight line. So we all handle it and process it differently. So it's kind of a broad question and kind of impossible to answer. So it's not that I'm trying to avoid it. I can tell you it's kind of interesting on nitrogen narcosis that one of the things I like to do is on my deep dive class, I take you out and before we get in the water, I've got a slate and I put 8 math problems on them. And they are all pretty simple. 1 + 8, 7 + 3, 2 + 5. They're all first grade math addition, right? And then I time you at the surface. And it typically takes my divers about 10 seconds to do my math problems on the surface. I take them down to 100, a little past 100 feet, and I give them the same math problems. Anyone want to take a guess on how long it takes the average diver to finish my 8 math problems? That's a little long, but that would definitely be certainly a dramatic issue. You want to take another guess? About a minute. About a minute 10 is a typical for them to do the same amount of math problems. So nitrogen narcosis is absolutely kicking in. Cold depth is kicking in and causing the neurons to not be able to fire nearly as quickly. We're reducing the electricity load, right? So it definitely happens, but realize the nitrogen narcosis is like anybody ever heard the boiling frog story? Right, you put a frog in a pot of water and turn the heat up slowly. He doesn't jump out when he just boils to death. Same basic idea of nitrogen narcosis. You need to be very, very, very self-aware. And this is why, is because these maladies will sneak up on you much like whiskey does, right? It's that really sneaky thing, and all of a sudden you stand up and you're like, whoa! Dumb story for you. When I retired from the Marine Corps, I retired at Marine Corps Station Buford, South Carolina. We had the frog bar. And one of the challenges, the guys, we'd all go there together. I never did it. Well, at least I won't admit to doing it. How about that? They had a straight line that was about from here to the wall, and they put you on a bar stool, and they would give you a thimbleful of Everclear and have you sniff it, snort it, and yeah, it's not the brightest thing. It's 190 proof, 95% alcohol. Snorted up, and he felt fine. you felt absolutely fine. If you could walk from here to there on the straight line after snorting a thimbleful of Everclear, your drinks were free for the rest of the night. And all my guys wanted to do this. They thought this was a great idea. Nobody ever did it. You feel fine sitting there, and then you stand up, you're like, whoa, hello, darling. And it's a sneaky thing. So nitrogen narcosis is much the same. It sneaks up on you. You don't realize what's going on. That's why I say you got to be very, very cognitively aware. Take your time, understand what you're dealing with. Take the classes to understand how deep diving affects you and what ways you can be better off that. Now, here's the good news for you. Take nitrox, it eliminates a lot of potential for nitrogen as well. You're taking up less nitrogen. If you drink less the night before, you don't have as much of a hangover the next day, right? So, did I give you at least a kind of in the ballpark of an answer? Cool. Oxygen toxicity is a really meaningful thing. It's when we breathe high partial pressures of oxygen for too long. It's something that typically happens with technical divers, but you just need to be aware of it. Signs and symptoms of it: visual loss in field, nearsighted, cataract information, bleeding, fibrosis, twitching, seizures, jerkiness, things like that. The prevention: make sure you understand the type of gas that you are breathing. If you are moving to nitrox, make sure you take a class on how to use nitrox correctly. Make sure you analyze your tank and always know what gas you're breathing. Simple enough. Carbon dioxide, hypercapnia buildup. Carbon dioxide is more appropriate to what you guys might run into. Simple way to get carbon dioxide buildup: 2 different ways. First one is overbreathe it, freak out, go into panic. The second way is you can build up to carbon monoxide buildup is if the intake for the air compressor used to fill your tanks was too close to the exhaust if they're using a diesel compressor. One of the things we should always do, whenever you're not in this shop at least, anywhere, I just don't trust anybody, but take a time, crack the seal a little bit, sniff the air. If it doesn't smell, if it smells like something, don't breathe it. Simple enough. Hey dude, this tank ain't right. Fun story for you. I always check my air that way, and I also always analyze my nitrox. I don't let anybody analyze my nitrox ever. Not even my wife. I love my wife with all my heart, and I trust her with my money and my life, but not my breathing gas. So you shouldn't either. So we get on this recreational boat in Florida in November, and we'd order up to 36% nitrox for the dive, and they put the tanks on, and I says, hey, we need to analyze it. She says, no, I analyzed it for you. That's great, I need to analyze. He looked at me, you don't trust me? I don't know you, so why would I trust you? He says, but I'm a retired firefighter. Thank you for your service. I still need to analyze my tanks. He says, you don't trust me? No, we probably went over this a minute ago, but I'm a retired firefighter. I was on the fire force for 25 years. Thank you for your service. I'm a Marine. I still want to analyze my dadgum tanks. Oh. Okay. And he finally let us analyze our tanks. Always know what you're breathing. Always take the time to be responsible for that person who has 2 thumbs. Right? Take the time. But as you might guess, carbon dioxide, hypocapnia buildup prevention. What it looks like: dim vision, reduced hearing, shortness of breath, tremors, sweating, unconscious, headaches, confusion, dizziness, mild narcosis, drowsiness, increased palpitation of the heart. Be aware of how you feel coming into the water during your dive and how you come out of the water. Next slide, please. And carbon monoxide poisoning, basically the same basic idea. Dizziness, headache, disorientation, impairment. How you feel coming out of the water is how you should feel going into the water. Be aware. Be self-aware. Next slide, please. I don't want to deal too much with that. Next, you went the wrong way. So, dive planning. Let's get into a little bit of terminology. I want you to understand. First thing is the definition of bottom time. The definition is simply enough: the beginning of the direct descent to the beginning of the direct ascent. So from this corner right here to this corner right here is considered my bottom time. Beginning of the direct descent to the beginning of the direct ascent. That's a key point. The amount of time I spend between dives, as long as it's more than 10 minutes, is called what? Who's got that one for me? Surface interval. Look at you. Teamwork, too. I love the teamwork. Repetitive dive. Got repetitive dive for me. What's a repetitive dive? Yes, any dive that's more than 10 minutes, less than 12 hours after the dive you just did is a repetitive dive. Simple enough. Next slide. Next slide, we've gone, I feel like we've hit that one enough. We've hit that one enough. So, the dive tables are a big, mysterious, and scary thing only in your mind. They're pretty basic, and they're pretty simple. So let's look at them. I've got them over here. If you guys would, please open up your phones. Open up the My SSI app, if you would, please. Go into tables. Josh, you want to come help with this table? Steve, you want to come help with this table? And you're looking for combined EAN. And you want those in English Imperial. There you go. You will appreciate them in Imperial more than you will appreciate them in metric. I can talk to you about them in metric. It's not a big deal for me. But y'all are those dirty Americans that like that Imperial stuff. Just kidding. I was the same way for quite a while until I got into technical diving, where it became, I discovered that Imperial or metric was so much easier. So we've got a couple of lines here. On the left-hand side, we see Air EAN 32 and EAN 36. Please disregard 32 and 36. That is for nitrox. We will talk about that in a moment. On the left-hand side, we have our air, or our depth, in 10 feet, 15 feet, 20, 25, all the way 70, 90, 120, 130. Our next line over here is our Doppler limit. That's how long, the maximum amount of time we can stay at that depth. So as you might notice, at 25 feet, I can stay for 245 minutes. At 130 feet, I can stay for 5 minutes on air. Now let's talk about how they came up with this just for a minute, just to give you a kind of idea. They came up with the dive tables originally in the 50s for the Navy. And the Navy came to Robert Workman. He says, dude, we need to figure out how long we can send a diver down to what depth where he can accomplish something. And Robert Workman said, well, sure, we can do that where he comes up safely, but what's the minimum amount of time to do something? And they said, well, 10 minutes. What's the deepest I can go for 10 minutes? Robert Workman said, I can do that. So the deepest he can go for 10 minutes is 140 feet. That's what he came up with. Now, you got to remember that in the 50s, and the U.S. Navy, their idea of testing something is, I need 100 volunteers. Perfect. There's 100 of you. You've all just volunteered. Thank you so much. Come on forward. You all are 19 years old and used to running 5 miles every day, and you're in great shape, right? Fantastic. So they take these young men who are in perfect shape, and they do these random testing on them where they actually send them down. That's how they figure this kind of stuff out. But they also realized in their infinite wisdom that we're dealing with 19-year-old males. Now, by a show of hands, who's met a 19-year-old male that's actually intelligent? Nobody? Gosh. They are a unicorn. They honestly don't exist. I was probably the smartest 19-year-old male that I know, but I just graduated college and I still thought I was 10 foot tall and bulletproof. But 19-year-old males aren't known to be the smartest thing. So they realized this. And one of the few things the Navy did right and said and figured out very quickly is, wait a minute, if we tell them they can go to 140 feet, Josh, what does that mean? If I tell you can go to a young guy like that, they can go to 140 feet, what are they going to do? Yeah, they're going to go 150 feet. If I tell a 19-year-old male that he can stay down for 10 minutes, how long is he really going to stay down? Exactly. So guys aren't the smartest animals on 2 feet at 19. So they realized this. They said, wait a minute, let's add some safety margin because we realize we're not dealing with the smartest animal on the planet at this point. So they said, okay, let's pull that back to 5 minutes and let's pull that up by 10 feet. So 130 feet for 5 minutes, there is a safety margin built into that. Please don't test the safety margin, right? It's like when you see that yellow light that's been yellow for 3 minutes, do you speed up towards it or do you slow down? Please be that person that slows down. it's to your advantage, especially while diving. So that's kind of an idea of how they came up with these tables. There is a safety margin built into them. That's your good news. It's about 40% roughly. So as we look at this, we start getting the idea. Here's how deep I can go. So what happens, Lily, if I'm looking at this table and I go to 51 feet? Where do I go on the table? Which I would go to 60, absolutely. Exactly. I always went around to the deeper depth into the safer, right? What happens, what line should I use if I stay down for a longer amount of time? I should go to the next level, right? If I stay down for 26 minutes, I'll use 30. If I stay down for 31 minutes, I'll use the 40 column. 41 minutes, I'll use the 50, right? Simple enough. So the way we figure this out is we have something called residual nitrogen. As we go down and we do our dive and we come back up, we have a remaining amount of nitrogen still in our system after the dive. It's still trying to come out. That's why the 12 hours, right? So what we've done is we made it nice and easy, very fourth grade, and we've said, okay, we're going to put you into a residual nitrogen letter group. That's what the letters along the bottom are, A through K. K being the most amount of nitrogen left in your system after a dive, A being the least. So if I go down and I go down to 40 feet and I stay there for 50 minutes, I am now an F group diver. If I go down to 100 feet and I stay for 10 minutes, I'm now a D group diver. Everybody following along so far? You tracking with me? You got me, Andrew? Right. Air high five for you. There we go. That's pretty much all there is to it. It's not that complicated. I figure out my depth. If I go a little past the current depth, I just use the next line below. If I stay a little past the time, I go to the next higher time. Easy enough? So, question for you guys. If I go down to 90 feet and I stay there for 15 minutes, what letter group am I? See? Now, here's your magic question. You can see it over here. Who can find it on your MySSI app and show me? Who can show me 110 feet for 10 minutes? Show me. 110 for 10 minutes. Show me. That's right. Good job. Who can show me 60 feet for 50 minutes? Show me.
50 feet or 60 feet.
Good job. One more. Who can show me 130 feet for 5 minutes? You got it? Show David.
What'd you say there, Ben?
130 feet for 5 minutes. What is it? C it is. Good job, guys. You're doing fantastic. Now, we're going right there. You're beating me. Right on. Next slide, please. So, we have table 1. We also have table 2, and it's in your app too. So as you start looking at your residual nitrogen, and you come out and you know that you're a C group diver for that 110 feet or 130 feet for 5 minutes, you were a C group diver. Simply follow it down. And how do I move up to a lower residual nitrogen rate, which is a higher level? So if I wanted to move up to an A residual nitrogen level, and this is going to be important in the next slide, I can go to C and I can say, as long as I stay out for 4 hours and 51 minutes or 50 minutes, but less than 12 hours, I'm going to be an A group diver. If I only stay out for a half hour, I'm going to remain a C group diver. If I stay out for an hour and 40 minutes, I become a B group diver. If I stay out for 4 hours and 50 minutes, I become an A group diver.
That's out of the water, right?
Out of the water, yes. My head has got to be out the water for that amount of time. So this is the residual nitrogen group that I'm currently in, and if I want to reduce that group and go to a higher group with less residual nitrogen, this is how long I have to remain out of the water for that to happen. So, just to make sure we understand this chart, make sure you guys have this all up in your app. This is chart 2 in your app. So if I am an H group diver and I stay out of the water for an hour and 55 minutes, what is my new letter group designation? H group diver, hour and 55 minutes.
Age group diver, hour and 42 minutes, which is not quite D level.
Show me. You got it?
It's the same. Age comes down. Cross out. So where does it 155?
Good job. You've got very few high fives. You need a few more. I'm sorry.
Oh, gotcha.
Let's do another one. If I am a J group diver and I stay out of the water for 3 hours and 30 minutes, what is my new letter group? H group diver, 3 hours and 30 minutes.
Is it hour 55?
3 hours and 30 minutes. J for 3:30. Got it? Good job. What is it, Sam? 3:30. J for 3 hours and 30 minutes. D is exactly right. Good job. Pretty simple, guys. Definitely not rocket science. So let's go. We're going to look at one more chart. There's 3 charts. Chart 1, chart 2, and chart 3. Exactly. I know you guys are so smart. So if I have residual nitrogen in my system still, and I'm a letter group diver, I'm going to have to pay a penalty for that. That residual nitrogen that's left in my system is the equivalent of already having done at least a portion of a dive. It's the penalty because I'm doing a residual or a repetitive dive. Okay? So if I'm coming out of the water and I'm staying for a period of time and I'm an E group diver, now I can come down and remember, green is go, white is penalty. So I can look down here and I can say, okay, I want to do a 70 or 60-foot dive as an E group diver. I just put the two together. I've already got 30 minutes of residual nitrogen left in my system. I have to, that's my penalty. It's the equivalent as if I've already been diving for 30 minutes. That means I can only do a 20-minute dive as an E group diver to 60 feet. Make sense? Okay. Remember, green is go, white is penalty. So if I'm a G group diver and I do a dive to 40 feet, how much residual nitrogen do I have? G group diver, 50 feet. What is my residual nitrogen is 50 feet as a G group diver? 56 minutes. That's my residual, that's my penalty. That's how long it's equivalent that I've already been diving. Now, what you might notice is as I move up letter groups, that I have less penalty. I've blown off that residual and extra nitrogen that was in my system, so it allows me to dive longer and have less penalty. As an A group diver, you can see I have very low penalties. Now, magically enough, let's just look at 130 feet because it's an easy one to pick on. 130 feet has a penalty of 3 minutes and a dive time of 2 minutes. Josh, would you mind going back to slide 1 or table 1 of this? Anybody notice a correlation? 130 feet for 5 minutes? Oh my God! It is. It's pretty amazing. So the dive table 1 and dive table 3 add up to the same amount. This is how long you can stay down. You just have to be aware of how much residual nitrogen I currently have. So let's do some dive planning, guys. Close that. All right, everybody got their apps up? So, we're going to do something called multi-level diving. Because the tables with Bullman are set up to do your deepest dive first. If you don't do your deepest dive first, it screws up the tables and you're not able to accurately calculate the nitrogen. They're progressive.
5 feet down in the first one.
Yeah, we're gonna say that with 60 feet in here in a minute, but oh yeah, there you go. Okay, so we always want to make sure we do our deepest dive first. That way we're able to calculate the nitrogen absorption and the nitrogen loss the same way, and we're able to do it accurately. So we're all going out on a dive together. Our depth on dive 1 is going to be 60 feet, right? Now, our actual time that we're going down is going to be 60 minutes. On dive 1, how much residual nitrogen do we have? Our first dive of the day, how much residual nitrogen do we have? On the first dive of the day, how much residual nitrogen will you have? None, right? You can't have leftovers unless you order pizza, right? Pretty straightforward, right? So you will have, on dive 1, we're going to have 0 residual nitrogen, making our total time how much? 60 plus 0. 60. Why did I only have one person answer? This seems like a pretty simple one. They're narked. 60 feet. So 60 minutes. So we did 60 feet for 60 minutes on dive 1. We come up. What letter group are we? Could be table 2. First off, the magic question is, look at your tables in table 1. Can we do a 60-foot dive for 60 minutes? No? We can't dive 1. So, our first dive is going to be 60 feet for 50 minutes for a total time of 50 minutes, right? What letter group are we? Show me. Show my guides. 60 feet for 50 minutes. What letter group are we? H? I got one H over here. Who's got an H? Got an H? We're letter group H. Easy enough, right? Now, we're all on this dive boat together. How long are we going to stay out of the water, guys? You tell me. No, you don't even have to look at the charts. Just how long do you want to stay out of the water? We've come up, we're resting, we're going to change some tanks, change some gear up. Yeah, get a snack. The Oreo cookies on the boat are awesome. 90 minutes? Okay, I'll go 90 minutes. 1 hour and 30 minutes. So if I'm an H group diver and I stay out of the water for an hour and 30 minutes, what is my new letter group? H group diver. I'm an F group diver. Easy enough. And David, I want you to remember this art term. I use it in 2 separate places. You know where the other place I use it? What did I use that acronym for something else? This is a dive. I use it 2 separate places. Where's the other place I use it, and what does it stand for? Let's see. I like put the dive guides on the spot once in a while. We use it for presentations, actual experience, retail opportunities, training opportunities. Or actual time, residual nitrogen, and total time. We can use it twice. It's a nice acronym to always remember. There's 2 different places. So we're going to have to. So we're going out. We're going to do our second dive. How deep we're going? We did 60 feet on our first dive. How deep are we going on the second dive? You guys tell me. 40 feet? Okay. Depth is 40 feet. Okay. So we're going to go to 40 feet as an F group diver. And you guys want to do a 60-minute dive?
Yeah.
Can we do it?
Yeah.
We're an F group diver to 40 feet. Can we do it? We're an F group diver for 60 minutes.
Don't we need to go over 69?
No. Your penalty is 61, but the total time you can do is 69 minutes. So you can do up to 69 minutes.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Yeah. So you can do up to 60. Okay.
You can do up to 60 minutes.
You still got 9. Okay.
So we can do the dive. That's good. That's the good news. What's our residual nitrogen amount? How much residual nitrogen do we have? You just said it a minute ago. So we have 61 minutes of residual nitrogen. We do, but it's good to know what the rules of engagement are. So what's our total time? 61 and 60 is 121, right? 121 minutes. Easy enough? 121 minutes? That's our total dive time for 40 feet. Now, what letter group are we? So we're dive depth for 40 feet for 121 minutes. So we're what letter group are we, guys?
Oh, dive for 60 minutes. Well, you add those together.
Yeah, we're going by total time.
Where does that come in? So now if you go back to season 1, you're going to look for a dive. Go to table 1.
So you have to add the penalty and the actual together, and that gives you the amount that you'll go back to chart 1 for. So adjust back so you can use chart 1 again. So now we're at 121 minutes at 40 feet. Did they get it? Awesome. Okay, so now we're a K group diver. We're going to do our third dive of the day, and we're going to do something else. How deep are we going to go, guys? What's our depth on? You do it. I mean, that's a pretty shallow dive. That's like Blue Heron Bridge time.
We'll do 35.
35 feet. Okay, I'm down. So dive 3 is going to be 35 feet. We got Art. So how long are we going to do this 35-foot dive for? "35 feet, how long do we stay down? Hour and 20 minutes? So 80 minutes. But the thing is, how long are we staying out on this last dive? We haven't figured that part out. Exactly. Just waiting for somebody to come up with that. Speak up. Don't be afraid. There's no. Okay, so how long we came out as a K group diver? How long are we staying out, guys? We're on the boat. We've just done 2 dives. All we've had is Oreos. Anybody want a virgin pina colada with me?
No.
Sure.
Oh,
I'll say
virgin.
yes.
Yes.
Virgin pina colada. I am the master of the virgin pina colada. I love virgin pina coladas. It's my favorite thing in the world. A little bit of whipped cream, man. Oh, it's so good on a boat on a hot day. Maybe we're gonna get a ham sandwich or something. Yeah, we'll have a little lunch. So how long are we staying out to have our virgin pina coladas and some lunch? 2 hours? Okay. So we're staying out for 2 hours. We're a K group diver. What does that make our new letter group? K group diver. 2 hours.
There were F, H, or no, G. Really, I can't tell you.
What's our new letter group? What'd you come up with? G. So we're a G group diver, and we're going to do a 35-foot dive for 80 minutes. Can we do it? G group diver. $35 feet, which means 40. Can we do?
No,
We can do a 57-minute dive. So we're going to do a 50-minute dive.
So if we stay out longer, do we get? Is that the story?
No,
Or what do
we
get?
stay out longer. We go to a lower letter group.
No, I'm just. But it,
You're off gassing more gas. The longer you're out, the less nitrogen in your system. The less nitrogen in your system, the longer you can dive.
no, but I'm saying, what if we wound up? I'm just like, what kind of things will happen to our bodies if we stay?
DCS. DCS. The bends.
No, I know, but what's pressing the water?
Yeah, you're. So that's what you're doing. You're off gassing. You're diffusing nitrogen.
You go higher depth.
So you can do a decompression, or you can do decompression stuff. Yes, ma'am.
Guys, if you stayed out for an extra 4 minutes, stay out for an extra 4 minutes.
Exactly. Slow down. When I was talking to you guys about diving, I told you I was teaching you to do a couple things, right? What's one of them? Teach you guys to do nothing, right? And how did I talk to you about doing your dives? Focus on this square foot of ocean at a time. Go slow. Take your time. Don't be the first one back on the damn boat. Now, trivia question for you guys, real quick. Most dive boats, real quick, David. Most dive boats set up their recreational dives for 50 minutes. Anybody know why? Why do you think most dive boats set their dives at 50 feet? Or 50 minutes, I mean.
You're tired, right?
Because the dive boat is on a schedule. They have dives that afternoon. If they keep and tell you that for safety, or you're going to put you in the water for 50 minutes, you have to be out by 60 on both dives or all three of your dives. That way they can keep their schedule and they get home to their family. That's the truth. So don't let them fool you. That's the main reason why. Exactly. Dive till you die. So it's a great point. What happens? You're a K group diver and you stayed out for just a little longer. We said how long? You're a K group diver, 2 hours and a half?
2 hours originally.
2 hours? What happens if you stay out for 4 more minutes? You're an F group diver. Don't be afraid to stay out a little longer and become an F group diver. So if we came out as an F group diver, they literally send 19-year-old guys down to the bottom and they bring them up and they run a Doppler on them. Measure the size of the gas bubbles. Seriously. So now we're an F group diver. So what's the maximum amount of time I can do as an F group diver for 35 feet? I just went from 57 minutes to 69 minutes.
So just tripled your.
Yeah.
4 minutes out, you go 12 minutes in.
So I get more time. I waited 4 minutes out of the water, and I got from 57 minutes to 69 minutes. Make sense, guys? Yeah, exactly. Take your time. All right. If you guys would, please, your homework. Please make sure before Monday that you have finished all 6 chapters of your My SSI open water course. Please, 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 pretty please. If you wouldn't mind terribly, I'd be very proud of you, and I will even give you a little hand if you do. Absolutely, and maybe a high five too. So if you're looking forward to that high five, finish homework. But also take the time and really look over these tables. Run some dive scenarios. Simple enough? Because I promise you, on Monday, we're going to go over this again. So I like to do it twice before we finish up our dive tables. Sorry for my reach here. Next slide, please. Next slide. Next slide. There we go. Next slide. Next slide. All right, tonight, guys. Who wants to know what we're doing tonight? David? Perfect. So, again, this is Owen, the cutest little snorkeler I've ever seen in my entire life. I actually took him into Scuba Explorers this week, so I'll be changing out this picture with his Scuba Explorer photo of him and me at the bottom going, yeah! So, tonight we're going to assemble our gear. We're going to do a basic weight check. Hopefully, everybody remembers how much weight they had on Monday. Is that the projector? Yeah. Okay. All right. We're going to do a no mask swim with our full scuba kit on. Not all of us at the same time, though, thankfully. What we're going to do is we're going to learn to do-si-do. Now, do you need a mask to dive? No, it's a nicety, but it's not a requirement. So, what happens if you lose your mask? Well, we're going to practice a little bit. So what I'm going to have you do is buddy together. Your new sign and symbol for tonight is buddy teams. Okay? So everybody, I would imagine you two will be a buddy team. I'm going to guess that you two are a buddy team. And you guys are going to need to figure out some sort of buddy team over here. I may buddy her up with Doofus over here. You know I like you. I would give you a hard time if I didn't. So, you guys are going to, and what I'm going to have you do is I'm going to have you pick one of the two people in your buddy team to take their mask off. We're going to take that other person by the back of the arm. Is if I have the back of their arm in a nice meaty position right there, I can control everywhere they're going to go. It's a lot like ballroom dancing. We'll waltz later. It'll be fun. It'll be cute. It'll be amazing. Maybe a little tango, some paso doble. I don't know. You're a little too tall for me for paso doble, but just kidding. Scary that I know that, right? There's a story I'll tell you later. We're going to go through that with a no mask swim. You're going to go down. Once you get down to the other end, you're going to switch who has the mask and who doesn't. You're just going to practice controlling your buddy so that they don't crash into the end. If your buddy hits the end and they cause blood, I do have a suture staple kit in my truck. I'll be happy to pull that out and staple you right back together. Yes, ma'am?
If you're the buddy without the mask, you have to close your eyes.
If you'd like to, you can.
Because, like, what if you're really good at water and you screw up with the
You can keep your eyes open if you so choose. It'll be harder in salt water. After we get through the no mask swim, we're going to just go down. We're going to do a neutral dive position. And then we're going to go through mask drills 1 through 3. We talked about these the other night. Simple enough. Mask drill number 1. Halfway up. You're going to take your mask at the top. You're going to crack the top while looking up. Take a breath through your mouth only, please. Fill it halfway up. Then take 2 fingers. Put them at the top of the mask. Look up. Breathe in through your mouth. Out gently through your nose. Currently, all these masks are boogie free. I'm going to encourage you to keep them that way. So, blow gently until all the water has exited through the positive pressure of air in your mask. Good news. If it takes you 1 breath to get these done, you are a superstar. Congratulations. You get a high five. If it takes you 5 breaths to get done with this, congratulations. You are a superstar. I will high five you at the end of it. If it takes you 10 breaths, congratulations. You passed. But we'll probably talk about it at the surface just to figure out how we could be a little bit more efficient. Easy enough? Mask drill number 2, all the way up. Same as the half, but a little bit more water. You're going to look up, take a breath through your mouth, and you're going to let all the water in until it fills all the way up. Then you're going to take 2 fingers, put them at the corners of your mask, look up, breathe in through your mouth, out through your nose. Same rule applies. 1 breath, you're a superstar. 5 breaths, you're a superstar. 10 breaths, you're a superstar, but we talk about it. No big deal, no judgment on my part. I don't judge anybody. Mask drill number 3 is going to be all the way off. You're going to take your dominant hand. You're going to put it over the front of your mask. You're going to take the non-dominant hand, take this mask strap and put it over the back side. Gently pull the top of the mask until it lets all the water in. Anybody notice that word gently in there? Exactly. So please gently pull that out, pull it and let the water in. Once all the water is filled up, take it away. What I'd like you to do is take that non-dominant hand, reach over, find the mask, the nose wells for your mask. Make sure that it's going back on correctly, because the bad news is when you do this in open water, because you had the opportunity to dive next to Michael Phelps, who happens to look like a wet cat when he's diving, and has kicked your mask off, you will grab your mask and you may not grab it the right way up. Get used to reaching over and finding the nose well with your other hand to make sure it's correct. Once you've found that, take it over. Pro tip for you, as you're putting it on, start from the top and exhale at the same time. If you exhale in the vertical position, where are the bubbles going? Look at him go. He had his red crayons for breakfast, I can tell. It's going to fill your mask with some air, and it's going to take a lot less to empty that out. Push it down over your face, and like Mom says, if you put something away where it's supposed to be, it will be there when you go looking for it. So take that mask strap over, put it across the crown of your head, 2 fingers on, look up, breathe in through your mouth, out through your nose, and if you've exhaled while you're putting that on, you won't have nearly as much water in your mask. You have completed the skill. That's all there is to it. Now, where are we going to do this? We're going to do it the shallow first to make sure that nobody freaks out on me and that everybody is able to accomplish it. Then we're going to go to the deep end. Now, because we have a little bit larger class, we have in our midst 7 divers. I will take 3 of you at a time and then to the deep end to actually do them together. While I'm at the deep end with the 3 divers, I will have my fantastic, amazing, spectacular dive guides giving you the opportunity to practice this at the shallow end. Once I've gone through it with you completely and I've seen it in the shallow end, it's no longer introducing a skill, it is now practicing a skill. And I'm going to give my dive guides the opportunity to work with you in that skill. Once I have you completed at the deep end, I will put you in a corner, and unlike Dirty Dancing, nobody puts baby in the corner. I will put you in the corner and give you the opportunity just to blow some bubbles. I know you like the Dirty Dancing reference, don't you? I do too. Patrick Swayze was pretty damn sexy without his shirt, that's for sure. I'm not afraid to admit it. I was like, whoa, look at him. Even if he was in ballet. That's where he started. He was a ballet dancer. Him and his wife. They started out as professional ballerinas. Patrick Swayze is a Roadhouse guy. Professional ballerina. Really? Anyway. We digress quite a bit. Anyway, so the moral of the story is we're going to take you out, I'm going to put you out and give you the opportunity to practice blowing bubbles. Now, once I've looked at and given you the okay on your skill, please don't continue practicing the skill at depth. I just want to give you that time to be underwater and blow some bubbles. I'll go get some more divers, and eventually I will tell you go ahead and go up, go to the shallow, and when I tell you to go up, go ahead and go to the shallow end. It'll give you time to practice a little bit more on the shallow end. That's what we're going to do. We are going to practice if I can get through that, stationary air share, passing the primary regulator. What does that mean to you? David, would you please come hither? No, I didn't call him Heather, I called him hither. Okay. Yeah, well, that'd be pretty at least just a regulator. That's all I really need. All right. Now, the air sharing and air sharing ascent, the idea is if I run out of air, what do? I go to my new pony bottle with feelings. And I use his air to get me to the surface. Sometimes my pony bottle or my emergency air has feelings. Sometimes it has lipstick. But it always has more air than I do. So the signal for it is, I'm going to come to you as you're sitting there. Are you okay? Out of air, share. Are you okay? Out of air, share. Okay? Now the good news is we're practicing, that's going to be a hand arm signal. So at the end of this, you're going to understand how to share air with your buddy safely. The value to you on this is if you run out of air, you will know how to signal your buddy and share air with them. So that'll be the signal. Are you okay? Out of air, share. You can be the okay. If you are, then the good news is I'm going to do the out of air share with all of you at least 3 times. I will not make you guys do it together, because then we have 2 inexperienced people trying to do a new skill and havoc pursues. At least if we have only one person practicing a new skill underwater, we at least have one person that has maybe done it before. I've done it at least once or twice at this point now. Maybe 3 times. I don't know, 400 or so. Yeah, something like that. Anyway, I've done it a couple times, so the idea is I'll know how to do it. So I will be out of air first, and I will say, you, okay, out of air, share. Okay, I'm out of air, share. Step 1, right hand to the base of your regulator on the hose. Which way does that go? Please demonstrate correctly.
I couldn't hold it out with the way my wrist was.
There you go. So at the base of your base of your second stage, grab the hose, a good hold of it. Simple enough. Take a breath before you take it out of your mouth. Take it out of your mouth and point the regulator down. Okay? Now, present it to your buddy. He's going to take it with his right hand and put it in his mouth. He's going to clear it and put it in his mouth. Good to go? Good to go. Okay? At that point, you're going to take your secondary. You're going to put it in your mouth. Blow out first and then back in. Once I have it in my mouth, I'm going to take my right hand and I'm going to grab his right strap. Once he's got his regulator in his mouth, he's going to take his right hand and grab my right strap. He's going to take his left hand and he's going to grab his inflator. I'm going to take my left hand, I've still got his air, and I'm going to put my left hand on the inflator. At this point, we're going to cut the drill. Okay? Are you okay? I'm okay. So all I want to see is, I want to see you get to the point where we have regulators in our mouth. So again, simple enough. I'm going to come to you. Are you okay? Out of air, share. You're not going to do the skill. I'm just asking, are you okay to do this? Okay. I'm out of air, share. Again, you're going to reach over. You're going to find your regulator. Big fist at the base of the regulator. On the hose. On the hose. Where? On the hose. Yes. On the hose. You're going to take one breath in. And then you're going to present it to your buddy. And they're going to take it. Yes, sir. That is the standard of where you're not getting in the way of the regulator. You're not getting in the way of the pieces. And it's the most stable place on the regulator to grab it. Where you're able to present it. It's not causing, people present it like this, present it like that. It's the most efficient way to present it and a safe way that you can get a good hold of it. You're going to take it. You don't actually put it in your mouth. Once it's in your mouth, I'm going to grab right strap. You're going to take that right hand. Grab my right strap. You're going to take that left hand. You're going to take and hold your inflator. You can just set that down. Like that. That's as far as we're going in this drill. That is stationary air share. Easy enough? It's not a complicated skill. It's not hard. I promise this. You'll be doing it with me tonight. You'll be doing it with me on Monday. You'll be doing it with me on Monday. Okay? I do it with you 3 times myself before I ever turn you over to somebody else. Okay? So, the other skill we need to do tonight is going to do regulator drills 1 through 5 in the shallow and the deep. So we've got a fair amount of skills to try and get through tonight. We'll get through them, don't worry. So, our regulators in our mouth. We're going to do regulator drill number 1, the purge. Okay? Here's what it's going to look like. You're going to take the regulator, grab it by the hose at the base of the second stage. Take a breath in. Take your regulator out. Blow bubbles. Remember, this is a breathing sport. We always do what? Breathe. So blow bubbles. If you'd like. It's a lot of fun, and if you don't do it, you'll hear me do it. Make the train sound. Or the airplane sound, whatever sound you want to call it. Right? Make that sound. And you can make sound at the same time. If you don't do it, you will hear me go. Blow small bubbles. Whenever the regulator's out of your mouth, always blow small bubbles. So, at the base, take it out. Point your regulator down. Take it, put it back in your mouth. Simply push the button for about a half a second till it purges, and then take one deep breath in. That is regulator drill number 1, the purge. The purge. Regulator drill number 2 is very much the same. Regulator drill number 2. This is the purge with your breath. You're going to take and grab the regulator at the base. Take a breath before you take it out. Point it out, take it out of your mouth. Blow a bubble. Put it back in your mouth and blow. Clear out the water. Now, why do we do that? Exactly. There's about a teaspoon of water is going to come into your regulator when it goes out of your mouth. I promise you, about a teaspoon of water into your lungs will make you feel like you're drowning. You will lovingly, what I call, turn into the wet cat. Your eyes will go to the size of silver dollars, and you will try and get to the surface. because you would think you're drowning. You are not, but it'll feel that way. So let's just prevent that altogether, and let's just go ahead and not breathe in water into our lungs. So simple enough. Regular drill 1 is going to be the purge. Regular drill number 2 is going to be the purge with a blow. So it's simple enough. Those are the 2 ways to clear a regulator. Regular drill number 1, regular drill number 2. Regulator drill number 3 is much more fun, but this is where you get to use physics and gravity to your advantage. Regulator number 3, you're going to take a breath. You're going to take that regulator and you're going to toss it off to the side because you're just that cool. Blow bubble. You're going to lean to the side because this has weight and gravity is your best friend. Lean to the right. You're going to take that arm straight out, blowing those bubbles. You're going to take and you're going to slap your thigh, slap the tank, bring it big and around. Take your left hand, touch your wrist, come down your arm. You will find that hose. Once you've found that hose, take the regulator, put it in your mouth, and use your preferred clearing method. You may purge it or you may blow it clear, whichever is preferred for you. That is regulator drill number 3, the toss. Regular drill number 4, a little different. You're going to take a breath, blow your bubble, toss this away. You're going to find your secondary. It's going to be clipped in a nice little container right here. You're going to clear that out. You're going to pop that in your mouth, and you're going to clear it your preferred method. Once it's cleared and you're good to go, you're going to take your left hand. You're going to reach behind you. You're going to find the bottom of your tank, and you're going to lift your tank up. You're going to take your right arm. Just take it all the way out to your right, and then over top, and you'll find the first stage behind you. Once you find the first stage, other hoses are attached to the first stage. Find the one with your second. Bring it around. Take your safety second out of your mouth. Put your primary back in your mouth. Clear it your preferred method. And go ahead and clean up. And you'll see me do this. Please clean up and put your safety second back in its handy dandy little container. That is regular drill number 4, the grab. Now, why would you want to need to know how to grab it from the first stage instead of just sweeping? You might panic. That's one. What else? What condition might you be in where your regulator is not just going to be right there? Small spot could be one. What other? A current. I have actually seen a regulator flop out like this. I had 4 Florida divers come out and want to do Firehole River with me, and I tried my best to talk them out of it. And I kept explaining that it has real current. They said, well, we drift dive all the time and in current. I'm like, no. A class 4.5 rapid is much different than an ocean current at 2 knots. I promise you. They didn't believe me. I tried again. We got down into the current, and one of them lost their regulator, and I was watching it go like this, and this lady kept sweeping trying to find it. Couldn't find it. Finally, I just grabbed it and stuck it in her mouth because it was right there. But I was like, really? You didn't grab your secondary? You're a dive master in Florida? You're obviously not a very good one. But just couldn't find it and just went into full panic mode. The current is definitely overwhelming. But if you get into current, that regulator could flop out here. So being able to take your arm out to the side, the reason we don't just go straight over is what happens is the tendons in your arms will bind up and you won't get as far. So if you can try, if you want to, try it. Just take your arm straight out like this and see how far you go get, versus take your arm out to the right and then go over. You'll be able to get another 4 to 5 inches deeper by taking your arm out and over instead of in front of you and over. So that's kind of a tech diver trick because in tech diving, when you dive twin sets, you have to be able to reach back and get to the isolator and over to the individual tanks if something happens. So to the right and over, get you a little deeper, and it makes it a little easier to get to that as well. Unless you're big and buff like Steven. He's just so. All right, finally, regular drill number 5 is the constant flow. Good news is these regulators are designed to fail in the open position, which means shh, continue. I've seen it happen more than once. I've had it happen personally. I've seen it happen to my wife as well. When they fail, you can breathe on them. What I want you to do is regulator number 5 is the free flow. You're going to take that regulator out, but you're going to take a breath first. You're going to look down. You're going to put the regulator halfway in your mouth. You're going to push the purge button, and you're going to count to 3. 1, 2, 3, while you breathe. The good news is if you put this regulator in your mouth and it goes to full free flow, you will be able to breathe. It'll just purge out the sides. But I want you to get the idea that you can breathe if a regulator does fail to the open. And the good news is the majority of the time they fail on the open. Okay? I've never seen one fail to close. Yes, ma'am. Feel like you got a question. Okay. Not a worry. Those are the regulator drills. Regulator drill number 1, the purge. Regulator drill number 2, the purge out. Regulator drill number 3, the toss, sweep, and find. Regulator drill number 4, the toss, the secondary, the reach and find. The left hand on the tank, right hand over top. Why would we use the right hand to find our regulator? Exactly. Pretty simple reasons, right? Can't tell you how many times I see people take their right hand and try and lift their tank, and I'm like, what are you doing? Your regulator's on the other side. They do it anyway. It happens, right? And regulator drill number 5 is the free flow. Those are the skills we're going to try and accomplish tonight. We need to at least get through mass drills and regulator drills. I would like to get to the air sharing tonight as well. At least introduce that tonight. And then on Monday, we'll introduce air sharing ascents and emergency swimming ascents and emergency buoyant ascents. Those are the fun ones. So this is the easy class. These are the key skills. What questions do you guys have? We'll see what we can do. The good news is I will demonstrate in the pool. And here is night 1. I may have mentioned what was the very, very first hand arm signal I mentioned? The stop. Josh, David, Doofus, I'm just kidding, Stephen, and Ryan have done these skills once or twice before. I've done them once or twice before. We realize we've done them a few times prior to this. We also realize this is your first time through it. If you are uncomfortable, if we are going too fast for you, stop. Would you demonstrate? Just ask me to re-demonstrate, and I will re-demonstrate. Okay? Not a problem. I have no problem doing that. I cannot demonstrate in open water, so we need to make sure you get it here. But the good news is, this is not rocket science. You'll get it. I have no doubt in my mind. So I will demonstrate at the surface, and I will demonstrate at depth as well, both shallow and deep. So you'll get to see it at least 3 more times, and you'll get to see it in action. Easy enough? Same thing with air sharing. I will demonstrate again in the pool for you at shallow, at the surface, and at shallow as well. Easy enough? Cool. Dive guys, if you'd each grab a student and help them find gear, put gear together. Please don't use that yellow or blue tanks there by the wall. Dive guides, if you guys would not use those blue and yellow tanks right there by the wall, those are side mount tanks.